And to check the mic, Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. I'm at home. Sam coming at you from the Antonio Cromartie studio in part with Huggies. Time for our AFC and NFC South Fixing Every Team series. Last two divisions. It's all brought to you by FanDuel. How you doing?
Pretty good, Steve. Pretty good. How about you?
Doing all right. I've got wife out of town, 4 kids. We decided dragging the 4 kids into the studio for the day for this bonus show was
Felt
not
like
the
a
best
bad
idea.
Yeah.
They're it's just when you multiply the children, it's harder to keep them quiet.
It's like an exponential problem. It doesn't scale linearly. If you put 4
It
there
really
as opposed to 2, that's definitely more than 2 times the trouble.
We could handle the 2 for 2 hours. 4, it'd be big time trouble. So we're gonna do it. I'm at home, so we're gonna go team by team. We've been doing it all week, fixing every team in 15 minutes here.
Tell you what is great though, for a little inside baseball, that with you not here, I can pull the box that has the IFB attached to it all the way to my side. So you can't even see I got the IFB in. Like, number one, there's no slack issue. And number two, it's like hidden behind my head the way it's supposed to be. As a professional, you can't even tell there's an earpiece in. Now, the only downside is I've left the volume on the computer turned up really quite high. So there's like a slight echo in that I can hear coming through the headphones over there at the computer. But these are small problems.
When I do do you want me to just vamp and you could go turn it down?
I did think about that at some point, but I'm hooked in. I've got this thing connected. It would be a pain. I think I'm just going to have to live with it. It's going to be like that.
Can Will fix volume from remotely?
No, I think that's the thing. It's like that. Remember that there was like a Browns radio hit where for some reason there's like the one institution in the world that's unable to patch in a guy on the phone without it repeating through your own thing. You just have to live with it. When you do this Brown station, you've got to live with 15 minutes of your own audio echoing back through your ear and try and get through it. That's what I'm going to have to do. Struggle through. Sometimes you don't always get optimal circumstances, and this is what we're dealing with.
We've all been there with the echo, been live on NFL Network with it. You got to play through. You got to play through it.
Got to play through.
All right, well, let's do it. We're going team by team, starting in the AFC South with the Houston Texans. Texans coming off their 3rd straight season in the Elite 8, in the Final 8 in the NFL, losing in the divisional round once again. The biggest thing was, C.J. Stroud underperforming in the last 2 games, but we're talking about a defense that I thought was the best that we've seen in the last decade. I know Seattle won the Super Bowl, and they're getting all the hype. I think Texans had the best defense in the league this year. They have many of their pieces coming back, and then recently this week making some moves, trading Titus Howard. They re-signed Trent Brown at right tackle, and yesterday re-upping Danielle Hunter to a $40 million 1-year extension to just, give him a little reward and lock in him, and then eventually going to have to probably break the bank once again, or as well for Will Anderson. So they're loaded on defense once again, and the offensive line is going to be one of those questions for Houston that we'll talk about.
Yeah, and Hunter basically maintaining his streak of guaranteed money. I saw somebody, it might have been Jason Fitzgerald from Over the Camp, saying he's basically defensive Kirk Cousins in terms of like maximizing his contract earnings over his career, and B, the way Kirk Cousins hit that run of like multiple consecutive fully guaranteed contracts. Not the way Deshaun Watson did with the 5-year length, but like 3-year guaranteed, then up that. Danielle Hunter's kind of done the same thing. He's been on fully guaranteed money for a while now, which is pretty impressive going.
Yeah, the only thing I wouldn't compare there is Hunter's developed into one of the top 4 or 5 at his position, and Cousins is Cousins. But I get it,
and that's why. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't comparing them as players; he was comparing them as businessmen.
So, where do you want to start here with Houston and what needs to happen going forward? Do you want a 2-minute C.J. Stroud discussion? Was there anything that happened late in the season? It's a little Sam Darnold-ish, where most of what we saw previously was perfectly fine, but the last 2 bits were so bad. Does that make you rethink anything about long-term prospects for C.J. Stroud?
Yeah, well, they are in this world now where it was so bad that people are asking questions about his long-term future, including trade questions. Now, the Texans, I think, have come out and fairly conclusively rubbished any kind of trade talk. Been like, that's crazy.
Rubbish.
We're not talking about trading away C.J. Stroud. Any suggestion to the contrary is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. But, by pretty much any measure, if you look at his career, it's going backwards. Like, it starts with the best season, the following season wasn't as good, and then last season was the worst. That's not great for a quarterback that theoretically should be the future, should be the guy, you want taking it. Now, I think, again, this is the problem with sort of evaluating players, is that no one ever remembers context. I would say he was actually better year 2 than year 1, given the circumstances around him. I think the offensive line fell apart, and actually on a play-by-play basis, I think Stroud was every bit as good year 2 than he was year 1. But the stats won't show that. The stats will say he regressed, he got worse, he got, took a step backwards. I think it's inarguable that this past season he definitely got worse across the board. But now you're in this tough world where, like, you can't feel good about extending him long term and giving him, the top of the market, big extension. And so I think I think they're right that any idea that they would trade him away is kind of crazy. So I think you're just in this world now where you let him play out this season, see how it goes, and then based on this season is when you start making quarterback decisions.
And you mentioned the context around the offensive line. It was better last year. I don't know if it's where they would want it, but the couple moves that they've just made now, trading Titus Howard, re-signing Trent Brown to presumably play right tackle, despite, he's getting a little bit older, had some injury issues. When they traded Howard, I was theorizing with Arante Ursary, who had, did a nice job as a rookie second rounder. Could they move him to right tackle? Are they in the mood? Are they going to try to make an aggressive move for a guy like Trent Williams, who is reportedly, potentially on the outs in San Francisco? It looks like that might not go down.
Right.
If we're playing GM here, which we are, wouldn't hate exploring that. The Trent Brown thing might change that a little bit, unless you just have Trent as a pretty well-paid swing tackle at this point. But the interior, both guards, you could still upgrade, and I think that's something they need to address. Maybe that's a late first rounder, or you just go to the, second wave of free agency or the cheaper wave of free agency at guard.
I mean, they're another one of the teams. Like, half the NFL seems to be in this bucket where tackle is okay. The entire interior could use being upgraded. Now, again, I don't know how much they view Jared Patterson as good to go as one of your 3 interior spots. Like, we were sort of speculating this with Juice Scruggs as well. A team theoretically voluntarily went out and got Juice Scruggs, right? Does that indicate that they have some faith that he can be one of your interior solution spots? Maybe. Is it just a throwaway piece of a trade and you're like, well, let's kick the tires on Juice Scruggs? Similarly, I mean, the Texans had both Scruggs and Patterson brought in, and they've both kind of struggled. Because they traded away Scruggs, do they view Patterson as, one of the 3 spots that's okay in the interior? Maybe, but equally, all 3 of these spots are still, I think, substandard.
The 2 veteran guards that I keep mentioning for teams, Isaac Seumalo and Kevin Zeitler, I think both in the short term would make sense for this team. If they're, grab someone else to draft and develop. Zeitler, I've mentioned for a few teams, reports that he might not want to travel to the West. We'll see how, is Houston too far west? Seumalo, though, both players would be like, if you could drop one of those just good, dependable, solid guards onto this offensive line, it goes a long way. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. And again, as we're playing GM, I'd be looking at one or both of those guys, so I don't have to go into the draft and feel like I need to draft a guard to fill a starting spot here.
Yeah, not a ton of money to spend from Houston's point of view. They can free up some, but as you said, they've got to have an eye on the future with Will Anderson due money at some point, and then the question of C.J. Stroud at least looming on the horizon. How much money do you need earmarked for the future to retain both those guys if that's going to work? So I don't think that this team can be free spending necessarily in free agency.
No, but so I think the cheaper guards, the other thing I'd keep an eye on, the underrated part of that defensive line. We all know Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, but man, were they good with Sheldon Rankins, Tim Settle. Like, they had some disruption on the interior as well. That was a big part of their success. Both of those guys are free agents. I would love to bring back one of those guys. Sheldon Rankins is that, 1 year, $7 million, 2 year, $6 million type of player. I would love to keep him on this defensive line. So I think defensive tackle, we've mocked defensive tackle to them at various points during this offseason. I think that's another position to keep an eye on in the draft. If Peter Woods were available there, Imagine adding him as a interior disruptor to that defensive line with Anderson and Hunter. So it's both. It's the guard and defensive tackle spots that I would say are the biggest acute needs right now for this team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Both trenches, the interior is where you would want to parachute players onto if you could just pick them from nowhere. In a lot of other ways, they're in really good shape. I mean, that receiving core I think is in very good shape given the additions of the Iowa State players. They're also, by the way, cornering the market on Iowa State skill position players with that David Montgomery trade coming over. Like they're everywhere. You've got the 3 Iowa State wide receivers with Xavier Hutchinson, Jaden Higgins, and Jaden Knoll. And then you've got David Montgomery being added as well. Iowa State everywhere.
That really is 4 Iowa State players. Who else can they add?
Right.
From Iowa State.
A trade for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, when you look at their roster, I mean, most of their defense, most of the players who would be projected to start today are under contract for this year and beyond. I just look at defensive tackle. I think maybe secondary depth. They're also, probably 2 years removed from having a lot of money tied up in Will Anderson, Hunter, Derek Stingley. Kamari Lassiter is going to have to get paid. Again, this is like the Lions. These are, I think, good problems to have, but because they have drafted well and added so much to this team over the last few years, getting the youth movement in to add depth at some of those key spots in case they have to make a decision. Can they pay Kamari Lassiter in a couple of years? Can they pay some of these players in a couple of years in just having their replacements or alternatives just in case they can't afford everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe anywhere else that you're looking at? Again, it's like a really strong roster. The Montgomery move too, I thought was really good just because you get him as the early down runner. You get Woody Marks, who did some nice things last year in the role that they drafted him for, which was third down back. And I think as a 1-2 punch, it's not as dynamic as having Gibbs as the second guy with Montgomery, but it's a nice backfield for Houston. They're in good shape here.
Yeah, Woody Marks was really impressive for them. I think a kind of surprise package. And, if Montgomery just keeps on ticking, like maybe you want to draft a guy that's the potential successor for David Montgomery down the line just because it's always good to have an insurance policy running back. But Montgomery means you don't have to go do that now. Theoretically, minimum this year, he should be more than good enough to make that work. Really, it's a good roster, and they're in a position, I think, where they really can focus on the interior on both lines of scrimmage. Like go hard after the offensive line on the inside, go hard for a defensive tackle somewhere, and really see what you can make out of this.
Is this an easy one for us?
Yeah.
I mean, as long as Stroud, and we try to be careful with our words where people get offended here. We use the word implode on Darnold at the end of last season, because that's what it was, right? It was just a bad couple games that looked nothing like the rest of the season. The last 2 games of Stroud were 2 bad games where, like, if he just didn't turn the ball over and panic a couple times against Pittsburgh, they win by 40. And against New England, they may have pulled the upset if he didn't turn the ball over and have some issues throwing the ball and reading the defense or whatever was going on that day. As long as he's back on track, is there anything else that needs to happen to get him back on track? The O-line, again, on paper, were they reasonable enough last year? Yeah, they were fine, but on paper, this is still one of the worst units in the NFL, or on the lower end with, second year anniversary and Trent Brown. That's a fine tackle tandem. And that's the one place where maybe if you're trying to get his confidence back, the place where you invest and say, okay, let's make sure that we really shore it up on the O-line.
Yeah, I think you would have to be massively concerned about the way the season ended for C.J. Stroud. Obviously, the final game was a complete and total disaster, but I think people kind of forget that the game before that was not dissimilar to that. It's just it didn't look as obvious because they won the game. And they won the game fairly comfortably in the end. But that game was only ever close because C.J. Stroud was playing kind of the same way and turning the ball over or putting it in harm's way the way he did the following week where it became a bigger problem. So you have to be pretty terrified about that, but there's kind of nothing you can do about it. You can't you're not going to ship away a quarterback like that now. There's no alternative answer. So you basically just have to hope that he bounces back, hope that you can, rebuild the thing around him and get his confidence back and stop that happening again, and that it was just a blip. But, this is the situation they're in. So I think they just need to – that offensive line is still not great on paper. Even the spots where they have a sort of nominal starter or a guy, pegged in that is the obvious game plan, even those guys you're not feeling great about. So really focus on the offensive line in particular, I think, this offseason.
Yeah.
Add a defensive tackle or two when the right guy comes along, and then really roll. Let's go.
Did you run a 3-round mock for them?
So they got 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. Peter Woods was the guy I did end up getting at 28 in the first round.
Love it.
Slipping into the second round was Caleb Lomu, the other Utah offensive tackle that we've been.
He's perfect.
Right.
That'd be a perfect pick with Trent Brown back for a year.
Exactly. So I snagged Caleb Lomu with pick number 38. Round 2, pick number 59, I got A.J. Halsey, the LSU safety. And then in the third round, pick number 69, I got Grayson Halton, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma.
Ooh. Oh,
double
if
up
they
on
could
the defensive tackle.
If they legitimately got those 2 defensive tackles, Woods and Halton getting added to the mix there, man, they could disrupt. That would be a good crew. That's a good haul.
So
Houston Texans fixed. Good work, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to the Indianapolis Colts. What an interesting story they are this offseason. You're coming off a year where they started out hot, tapered off. That coincided with Daniel Jones getting injured. He was in the middle of a career year, battling through injuries, then tears his Achilles. He has been transition tagged.
Yeah.
So he's probably staying with the Indianapolis Colts. We'll talk about that in a second. And then they have a decision that the player that everybody wants is Alec Pierce, their free agent wide receiver. Every team is already slotting Pierce into their receiving core as a deep threat because he's led the league in yards per reception each of the last 2 years. They're still trying to keep him, though. And we had a healthy discussion on the secret 33rd team call the other day with all the former NFL experts, current NFL experts, on the transition tag and the little bit of risk that the Colts took by putting the transition tag in where teams can come in, they can make an offer, and then the Colts have the right of first refusal on that contract. So it's not locking him in with the franchise tag. It's trying to save $7-8 million on the transition tag, but also opening things up to negotiations.
Yeah. What do you make of that as a concept? Because number one, they've chose to place a tag for transition or franchise on Daniel Jones and not Alec Pierce. And then number two, the fact that they've gone for the transition tag rather than the franchise tag, which, as you said, in a nutshell, you save whatever it is, $7 million. And the flip side of that is you no longer get compensation if a team rolls in with an offer that he signs to and you don't match. You still have the right to match the deal. But as we know from NFL history, theoretically, if a team really wants Daniel Jones, they can come in, construct an offer that makes it very difficult for the Indianapolis Colts to match that offer. And if that happens on the transition tag as opposed to the franchise tag, Daniel Jones leaves Indianapolis and the Colts get nothing out of it.
I read it as they're leveraging the injury to save $7 million. This is like their hedge to save a little bit of money and saying, we don't think a team's going to come in and say, we want 1 year of Daniel Jones coming off an Achilles where we don't know his recovery timeline. And that's the other aspect of this is the Colts know they're doing, I assume he's doing his rehab, even though was technically a free agent. I assume he's rehabbing with the Colts and they have an idea of where he is in his rehab. So I think that's what they're doing. Like, why would a QB needy team offer Daniel Jones a contract? And maybe it's a multi-year deal. And they're like, yeah, we're willing to, wear it the first half of the season or whatever the recovery time is to get Daniel Jones locked up long-term. There is risk. Like, there's a little bit of risk there, but I think they're banking on teams aren't going to be willing to do that because of the Achilles. We'll save $7 million. We'll take our chances, save a little bit of money on the way.
I think you're right, except I would also add in, I just don't think that they think he's going to have a strong enough market that it's a concern. Yeah. So remember at the start of the season where for like a month, Daniel Jones had the best everything, right? Best EPA per play, best PFF grade, best blah, blah, blah. Guess where his PFF grade finished over the season?
He ended at like 15-20, didn't he?
He ended up at 25th overall in overall grade, 22nd in terms of passing grade. So
and he started playing worse
yes.
with the knee injury before the Achilles. That's part of it.
He also, I think, started playing worse before that as well. Like, I think he just started playing worse. And then the complicating factor is, then you get – oh, wait, hang on. I may have been looking at the wrong year. Hold, please. I get the correct number.
He was closer to 15, I think. Wasn't 25.
Hang on 1 second.
Either way, I think there's other than Shane Steichen isn't exactly. It's not like he's Kevin O'Connell level of elevating veterans, but he does have a multi-year history of getting good play out of Gardner Minshew and almost a playoff berth. A little bit of Joe Flacco, and then Daniel Jones.
Interestingly, the rankings are almost identical. It's 22 and 24 instead of 22 and 25 for overall passing grade. Point being, even before the injury, certainly before the Achilles, and actually I think before the knee injury as well, his play had already fallen off quite concerningly. The numbers hadn't necessarily, like in some of those rough games, he still had, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, etc. But I think his play had already kind of fallen off. So you're talking about a quarterback who was already wobbling, right? And it's like, is he the guy that he looked early in the season? And, oh, by the way, he's now come off a torn Achilles. I just don't think they believe there's a massive risk that somebody's going to sign him to the kind of poison pill offer sheet that they can't match.
So let's assume Jones is back in Indy. What do we do with Alec Pierce? Because, again, this is because he's averaging almost 20 yards per reception over the last couple of years. The stat I used on the free agent show, 93rd in receptions, but 26th in receiving yards over the last 2 seasons. So he's been a legitimate big play threat. He's every week when Daniel Jones was putting up those big numbers, we said, what a group to throw to. Michael Pittman Jr., possession guy. Josh Downs in the slot. Tyler Warren, the rookie tight end, QB friendly, gets open, wins all over the field. And then Alec Pierce, the best deep threat in the NFL the last couple of years. He fits in perfectly with this receiving core. What do we do?
He does, and I would love to bring him back, but I think at the point now where you've theoretically exposed him to the market, I don't see how that happens. Like, we've been talking all the way through this that basically every team out there could use an Alec Pierce on their roster. He's talked about how he's earned the right effectively to explore the free agency market. If he gets to free agency, I can't see how the Colts bring him back. And I can't see at this point why he wouldn't get to free agency. Like, why he would be crazy to sign a deal now with the Colts, in my opinion, unless he values staying in Indianapolis so much that he's willing to take, a monster hometown discount in order to do that. I just can't see how they can keep him. Like, I don't understand why you would take that deal now. And then the second he hits the open market, I think that number is going to go to a place that the Colts basically can't match.
All right, so if we need to replace him, I'm looking at the free agent list, and one of my favorite vertical threats through the years is Khalif Raymond of the Detroit Lions. If you can't get Brennan Thompson, my favorite draftable deep threat who ran 4.26 at the combine, might even be faster, can Khalif Raymond give you, even it's not even 80% of what Pierce did, but at least he's the same guy that's always capable of the 50-yarders. The guy that we always talk about doing that too is Rashid Shaheed, but he's going to make big money. So if you're trying to get cheaper at that third wide receiver spot now, maybe a guy like Khalif Raymond would make sense here as a deep threat.
Raymond would be interesting. Jalen Naylor from Minnesota, I think, would be kind of intriguing as well. He's got some vertical ability. He's got some speed to him. He played pretty well last year in a receiving room that didn't play particularly well last season for Minnesota with a bad quarterback situation. Naylor's someone that could be theoretically a sort of ascending player. I feel like his ceiling is kind of capped, but he'd at least be an intriguing player to bring in. You talked about the impact that Tyquan Thornton has made a lot in Kansas City, and actually for the first time he was catching the deep targets that he's usually open with. Tyquan Thornton maybe. I mean, it's very much a Temu version of Alec Pierce in terms of let's hope we can find someone that's a deep threat, but all of those players you mentioned should be a fraction of the money that Alec Pierce is going to command.
That's the thing. Like, let's grab one of those guys a little bit cheaper. Some of the other questions on this roster, because look, it's for the 5th year in a row, it's like it's a pretty good roster, right? It's solid. It's Chris Ballard's done a pretty good job. It might not have star power, but it's like the two deep looks pretty good, or at least the starting 22 is pretty good across the board. There's rumblings now that Zaire Franklin, the high tackling machine linebacker whose advanced metrics don't always look as smooth, that he might be on the trading block or to be cut. We've said on every show it's a really good year to just find the next linebacker, whoever that may be. So go back to your favorite linebacker, Alex Anzalone, Caden Ellis. Go find your favorite linebacker in free agency and or the draft here.
Yeah, shout out to Anthony Reinhardt on Twitter, who he had this graphic that he put up weeks ago that was basically predicting cap casualties. And it's kind of funny how simplistic the NFL can be with some things, but it's basically just how much non-guaranteed money are you due right now. And if you're due a lot, you're going to get cut. Like that's the way the NFL works. Just like if you have a ton of money due that we're not actually guaranteed to pay you, we're going to get rid of you, even if you're a good player. And that's how all these NFL teams are doing. Almost everyone you hear about, this guy could be available, this guy's got cut, this guy's getting traded away, they're almost all appearing on his list, which is literally as simple as, how much non-guaranteed money are you due? And Zaire Franklin has been the third highest ranked linebacker on that list because of exactly that. And so he's the subject of these rumors.
As far as the rest of the roster goes, we'll see what happens with Franklin. So free agent linebacker probably needs to be addressed. As we get to, the secondary, don't forget they gave up their 2 firsts for Sauce Gardner. And, things went south. Poor Sauce was like 1-14 or something as a starting corner last year. Between the
record in the NFL individually.
He did, but it's still, when you see, assuming Travarius Ward is okay, he's had so many concussion issues. There's not a better 1-2 punch as far as man corners, I don't think, between as Sauce and Ward. Maybe the Texans are up there, and maybe there's someone I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But this is a great 1-2 punch. Plus Kenny Moore in the slot. DeForest Buckner is the closest thing they have to a star at defensive tackle. Latu took a big step forward last year and has more to do. But I think they're in pretty good shape defensively. Secondary is looking good. Got to replace Nick Cross at free safety. But in the draft with no first rounder now, because they go all in on Sauce, secondary looks good. I think they need more depth on the defensive line. Probably a starter opposite Latu, unless you like JTT heading into his second year. I wonder if a Zion Young might be the type of player available in round 2. He's talked about him as a fringe first rounder out of Missouri. But it's a decent second wave of edge rushers, which is often scary because you usually get your best edge rushers in the first round. But I think this could be a year where the value matches up for a team like the Colts, where the value and need matches up where they are actually picking in the second round.
Yeah, there's a lot of draft analysts out there that really like the depth of this draft, particularly at edge rusher, and generally across the board. I saw Daniel Jeremiah, I think, saying, the player you can get at 45 is basically the same as the player you're going to be able to get at 25, which is ideal for a team like the Colts who aren't picking until 47 or whatever it is. Theoretically, if that's true, this is the perfect time to not have a first-round draft pick from their perspective, so it times up well. I think you're right. Defensive line depth, they might need to replace, they might need a right tackle if they're letting Braden Smith hit the market. If they don't love, if Jalen Travis isn't the guy that can step in and be that starting caliber right tackle. This has been good.
He did a nice job last year. I do.
Sure.
Wonder if they're going to roll with him. And good upgrade, but he's in year 2 and was a developmental type of option who looked pretty good in his few games.
Right, exactly. And anytime you're talking about, developmental type right tackle, they always come with quite a lot of risk attached to them. So even though we've seen a small sample size where he looked pretty good, maybe they want an insurance policy, a contingency plan. If he doesn't pan out, some kind of right tackle option. But yeah, defensive line depth, offensive line succession is always a good thing to start acquiring. And then maybe regardless if they pick up one of those wide receivers we talked about, draft a guy, but they're basically talking about depth almost across the board, as is usually kind of the case with the Colts.
Were you able to fire up the mock for them?
Yes, but we're playing in a world that I'm less comfortable in the middle round. So let's see where we go. Pick number 78. Pick your favorite wide receiver at pick number 78. Oh, here we go. Got it. Don't worry.
I'd go Brennan Thompson.
No, I didn't. He wasn't available. At least I didn't see him. So two picks in the first 3 rounds. Pick number 47, we got R. Mason Thomas, the edge rusher out of Oklahoma. So there's your edge rush depth / starter. And then the 3rd round, we got Bryce Lance, younger brother of Trey Lance, North Dakota State wide receiver. That
6'3" receiver running 4.34 as a vertical threat.
So there's your
direct
Alec Pierce
replacement.
There's your Alec Pierce replacement. There's your Skywalk. Sorry, just a Die Hard 2 throwback.
That's all they have in the first 2 then, right?
Yep.
First 3 rounds. There we go. Look at that. Fix the Colts. Like I said, I mean, it's not like a ton of acute needs that need to be fixed. They got some cap room to free up. We'll see what happens with Zaire Franklin. I think there are linebackers to be had there. Go that route. If you want to grab one of those speed receivers in free agency, I would do it. And draft defensive line. Maybe with your first 2 picks, but I like the way those picks fell.
Yeah, they did. It did feel. I mean, again, that idea that this draft is actually pretty strong in the 2nd or the 3rd round, I think, is potentially going to manifest if the drafts fall like that. Bryce Lance, by the way, seeing him at wide receiver does kind of make you wonder what Trey Lance playing wide receiver would look like. I mean, given that he's quite obviously not capable of playing quarterback at the NFL level, it's kind of surprising that nobody's given it the Terrell Pryor and been like, hey, what do you see if you've got a wide receiver season in you?
They're already talking Terrell Pryor for Kalen Green, who hasn't even taken a snap in the NFL, just was at the combine for Arkansas. But yeah, Bryce, the first thing you noticed about Trey Lance was his speed. I remember just his debut in the preseason was like just the speed at which he came out of the bootleg felt like, wow, that could really stress the defense. He's just never gotten a feel for getting the ball out on time and throwing the ball accurately enough.
Right, and like every time you see him in the preseason or whatever, it's like it looks the same. It's like this is never going to get any better. It's just surprising to me that nobody's ever gone. I mean, maybe they have, and he's just said no. But it's surprising that no one's ever given, because Terrell Pryor took a while before they went, all right, it's time to try wide receiver. The quarterback thing's not going to work out for you. It's sort of surprising that hasn't happened with Trey Lance yet.
He still probably doesn't have as many dropbacks as Bo Nix had in his final season at Oregon. So I'd love to see that across his entire career.
Yeah.
So let's see. What's he got? 200 in his – yeah. He has 519 dropbacks in the NFL and college, Trey Lance, not including preseason. All right. Did we fix the Colts?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. Working efficiently here when you work from home.
Yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars up next. The AFC South Division winners, Jacksonville Jags, lost a tough one at home to the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round. But the first season of GM James Gladstone, head coach Liam Cohen, president Tony Baselli was pretty good getting the Jags back on track. We got some really good play from Trevor Lawrence, especially in the second half of the season. What are we doing this offseason? Some rumblings around Brian Thomas Jr. as he heads into year 3. And look, what happened with the offense last year is they traded for Jacoby Myers. The offense immediately got better, even without Travis Hunter. Brian Thomas Jr.'s role got diminished a little bit, so you do wonder if he is expendable and actually a really valuable piece to trade at this point. So what are we doing here with the Jags?
I had kind of forgotten that, actually, when we were doing this series, that Brian Thomas Jr. has been talked about as a potential trade candidate. Is there any team out there where you've been sort of saying this team's crying out for a potential number 1 X receiver type?
New England
should actually go after Brian Thomas Jr.
Patriots.
The Patriots. What would you give up for him?
I mean, he just went in the first round, had a better rookie season than all of the other receivers drafted ahead of him, maybe other than Malik Neighbors, but it was comparable. Had a rough second year. Maybe you don't trust him.
Yes.
But maybe you don't trust him all the way. But does his value diminish to a 2 at this point, or is he worth a 1 because he went for a 1 2 years ago and you've got 2 more years of really good cost control?
It's really interesting because I have no idea what to make of Brian Thomas Jr. anymore. You and I both were a lot lower on him than basically everybody else at draft time. On the other end of that spectrum, you have people like Chris Sims that had him ranked as, was he his number 1 wide receiver or number 2 behind Neighbors? But people like Sims thought he was as good as anybody at the draft. Year 1, he looked like the best receiver from that draft class. He looked like a absolute guaranteed number one superstar, X receiver that can do everything in your offense, explosive, could be a high volume guy. And then year two, the whole thing kind of fell apart. He starts getting phased out of the offense. There's talk about, confidence, attitude, everything, right? I have no idea what to do with him anymore going forward. I don't know if he's good or not. I don't know if he's reliable or not. I don't know if you want him on the roster or not. So, I mean, if you told me that you were going to get the rookie version of Brian Thomas Jr. and you could scale that forward to a high volume role, anyone that needs a wide receiver should be in the market for that, right? Anyone that needs a legit, I'm trying to think of the teams we've been talking about where they need that Jamar Chase. They should be flipping a first-round pick for this guy. But if you're getting the version from last year, Jacksonville might not even want him anymore.
Washington has Terry McLaurin, but they need a complement. Would you potentially want to reunite him with Jaden Daniels? The 1-2 punch of McLaurin and Brian Thomas. And again, I think it felt like they tried to make Brian Thomas Jr. the one. He's getting 10-plus targets a game early in the season. We had issues with, is he stopping on routes? When he, is Trevor just missing him? Is he dropping passes? Once they took some pressure off and said, okay, I don't care if it's Parker Washington. I don't care if it's Jacoby Myers. I don't care if it's Brenton Strange. Whoever's open, I'm throwing the ball to him. And if it's Brian Thomas Jr., great. The whole offense got better when they stopped forcing him the ball. So, again, it's tough to figure out what you do with that. If he's back in Jacksonville, though, on paper, it looks pretty sweet, doesn't it? With Jacoby Myers as your possession receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. maybe just as your vertical threat, and Parker Washington, who was outstanding last year. That is a great potential trio. And then whatever you get out of Travis Hunter, who I believe will be playing a lot more full-time cornerback. Yeah. But man, what a potential group of receivers you have now.
Yeah, so that's why they still can use him a lot, which is why the only way I think he is an actual trade candidate is if, number one, a really good offer comes in that you've basically decided this is almost too good to turn down, and then number two, if they really do think it's he's a problem, this is an attitude or a confident, he's going to be an issue going forward, so we're going to cash in now and try, because they theoretically could and should be able to use him, even if he's not going to become, the superstar number one that he looked like he was going to become year one. If he just becomes the designated explosive deep threat in the offense, and you can, shift the targets, the volume elsewhere within the offense, even if you're shifting Travis Hunter more to defense and he's only a gimmick player on offense, they should still want him on the roster. It's only if clearly they don't that he becomes a trade candidate. Washington would be a really interesting destination because you have that Jaden Daniels connection. And if Jaden Daniels endorses him as, hell yeah, we want this guy, love him, he's a great person, great teammate, blah, blah, blah. That's the one destination in the NFL where you could theoretically assuage some of those potential concerns that you might have otherwise of, do you want to trade for a guy whose team is trying to get rid of him at this point?
And the other interesting thing from Jacksonville's perspective, again, what's the best case scenario? If you get 90% of what BTJ was as a rookie, you keep him on your team and you feel great about that. But because the Jags made that big move to go get Travis Hunter, again, I don't mind the trade ups. I don't love in isolation, but I think you balance that out by accumulating picks elsewhere. And if the Jags and maybe Gladstone's going to go the full Les Snead and hey, first and second round picks, I don't care. I'll win on day 3 or I'll win rounds 3 through 7. Fine. But you want to have the high volume drafting to complement the move to go get Travis Hunter. So this would give you an opportunity to do that if you could grab a second round pick or whatever it is for Brian Thomas Jr.
And they've already kind of done that. I mean, they have 9 picks, I think, in this draft already. Right. Like you said, you could add more if you potentially traded away Brian Thomas Jr. But it's looking just from a very surface level a lot like the Les Snead FDM pick strategy, which the part people always leave out with that is, they trade away every first round pick every year, almost entirely for a decade. But they almost always have 9, 10 picks in the draft. They're all day 3. But if you hit on a couple of those guys, those are the most valuable contracts in the NFL. So you need the flip side of that, right? If you're going to trade away the high value picks, you better be assembling a bunch of the lower value picks so that you can offset that.
My production value metric has the Rams as the best drafting team, not even adjusting, just overall. Like they've brought in the most value through the draft since 2017,
Right.
while drafting in the first round like twice. So they've gotten veterans for first rounders and still drafted the best since 2017. That's why that strategy works.
How much of that, and not to derail the thing entirely, how much of that is strictly a volume thing? Like how much of simply being a league average caliber drafting team, if you just drafted averagely, but you had the most draft picks of anybody, how much would you end up being at the top of that list?
I think for them, you actually get so much value from Jared Verse and Kobe Turner and Puka Nacua. That's the heaviest of lifting. But you don't hit on Puka and Kobe Turner. You don't hit on those guys without having high volume picks too. So I think that's where it all comes down to.
Definitely helps that like the one time they used their first round pick in the last decade, they got a star defensive end out.
Yeah. Of course. So I'm fascinated to see what the Jags do with Gladstone, because Brad Holmes came from the Rams as well, and he didn't necessarily follow Les Snead's path. It looks like James is going to maybe go down that path for the Jags just after 1 year. So roster wise, some of the other questions, Travis Etienne, they're letting him walk. So they're letting some of the older players walk in free agency. Travis Etienne, Devin Lloyd, and there was someone else that I was going to mention. And they moved on basically from Walker Little at left tackle. Cole Van Lanen came in last year as he's just like a swing tackle type, a sixth or seventh offensive line type, and they trust him at left tackle and locked him up long term. So they actually have 5 starters returning on the offensive line. Have to figure out linebacker, have to figure out, do they want a running back, or did they handle that last year in the draft with Bashal Tutin and LaQuint Allen, 2 of their picks. And now with Hunter moving to corner, you might need a starting corner next to him with Monteric Brown hitting free agency, but there's not a ton to do here for the Jags. And then the one other decision that we need to decide, Sam, is do we want to give Trayvon Walker a long-term contract as he heads into year 4?
I mean, I see no need to do that right now, so I wouldn't do it now. I don't know if I would do it at all, depending on what the market's going to be for him, but I'm not breaking his door down with a contract offer right now. I think linebacker becomes a real issue without Devin Lloyd. I mean, he's been an interesting and inconsistent player, but he's still immensely talented. He's presumably going to get really big money this offseason as being he's the closest thing this free agent group has to being the classic old school, elite player hitting free agency at the end of his rookie contract and at the peak of his powers and the peak of his earning potential. He's the closest guy you're going to find to that, I think, this free agent group. And the Jags have obviously decided, we just don't want to be in that marketplace for him. But he's been a very good player for them, so you need to find a replacement for that, presumably in the draft, if not just getting a more established veteran player for cheap in free agency.
Some of the other free agent things to consider here. Right guard, Patrick McCarry, he might be better in a 6th offensive lineman, or a guy that can play all 5 positions as a backup. You could upgrade at guard. They could be in the Zeitler, 1-year sweepstakes type of deal just to shore things up front. And I think defensive tackle, as Eric Armstead gets a little bit older, Devon Hamilton, they could just use a little bit of interior pass rush. I think the Tim Settles and Sheldon Rankins of the world that I keep mentioning in free agency, maybe a David Onyemata on a 2 or 3 year deal. He's a little bit older, but still, he was a really nice free agent signing for the Falcons a couple years ago. Disruptive player. I would love to see Jaquan Jones from the Bills, just go through the free agent defensive tackle list. Maybe not John Franklin Myers, who's going to make, I think, a lot more money, but that second tier of defensive tackle financially, I think makes a lot of sense for the Jags here.
Yeah, agreed. I'd be kind of interested to see what Quincy Williams makes as a linebacker coming out of the Jets. He looked very good for a brief period of time and then sort of fell off a bit when they traded away all their best defensive players. I'd be curious what his marketplace looks like, because that would be a really interesting Devin Lloyd replacement. I'm a huge fan of Nakobe Dean. I want to put him pretty much everywhere, so I'd definitely be kicking the tires on him as well. I think they can definitely get cheaper than the Devin Lloyd number and still have a good linebacker core. Also, as we've said a lot, it's a great year to be looking for linebackers in the draft. Right.
And then at running back, they might trust Bashal Tutin and LaQuint Allen, but 2 options there. So Sean Tucker just did not get tendered by the Tampa Bay Bucks. There's a Liam Cohen connection there as more of a power back. I think he'd be a nice complement to Bashal Tutin. And then I like Tyler Algier, who I like for a lot of different teams. I think would also be a good complement to Tutin and LaQuint Allen. So we'll see how much they trust. Last year is 4th and 7th round picks to just roll with them at running back. But I think there are also some cheap other running back options. Maybe an Isaiah Pacheco. Like I feel like they just need one more of a power type of body in that rotation.
Yeah, I think that's possible. There's definitely some. This is not a bad running back group in free agency. Like I don't want to play at the top of the market. I don't want to be the guy that signs Kenneth Walker necessarily, unless that contract is a lot less than you think it was going to be. But there's some useful role players. Feels a bit, patronizing, but guys you can have in that committee as your backfield.
And then again, at corner, probably need a starter next to Travis Hunter and some depth there. Could go free agent group's not great, and I don't know if I want to spend a ton of money there, but guys like a James Pierre from Pittsburgh as a buy low type who's played decent football throughout his career. I think one of those guys might make sense, and then you see what happens in the draft. Yeah. You were able to run a mock for them.
Oh man, they don't pick until 50 something, right? But then they've got a bunch of picks in the
who's available?
Round 3.
Let me know who's available.
So the first pick I got Davison Igbinosun, the Ohio State cornerback.
Long corner, had 16 penalties 2 years ago, but other than that, looked pretty good.
Pick number 81, we've got interior offensive linemen on the clock available. We've got some wide receivers available. See, this is the area where it starts to get. I mean, Malachi Fields would be available here. That's intriguing. We got a couple of linebackers available. We got Godfather, of course, available.
He'd be a good fit for them. I know we gave him Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. Is he around there?
Yeah, he's around somewhere. Hang on. Where was he? There you go. Let's grab him. Keelan Rutledge, done. Pick number 88. We got basically the same players available, minus whoever went there.
Get the Godfather.
Let's get the Godfather. Dante Corleone from Cincinnati, defensive tackle, grabbed. And then pick number 100. Ted Hurst, wide receiver from Georgia State.
Oh, love that.
Done.
Size and speed. Look at that. We fixed the Jags. Giving them some free agent options. Good little mock draft for them. Well done.
Day 2 is going to feel fun for the Jags. Like you're going to have a rough wait of it, right? Waiting around till 56 rocks up. Like nothing on day 1, obviously, and then you got a fair wait on day 2. But then you're going to have these 4 picks before the end of day 2. That's going to feel pretty good.
All right, man, let's wrap up the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. Titans coming off a year, again, not very good after picking Cam Ward, number 1 overall, but a full rebuild here for the Titans. They'll be drafting at 4 overall. There's a point in the season where it felt like they could have been 1 and 2. They could have had the ability to, trade out of 1 since they already have the quarterback. But biggest needs here are going to be receiver for Cam Ward, and they probably need multiple pass rushers even after trading for Jermaine Johnson. So where are we starting for Tennessee? Also a plethora of cap space. Yeah. And I know everybody saw the Bears and the Patriots go from, no chance at, no playoffs to Final 8 for the Bears, Super Bowl for the Patriots, year 2 of their respective quarterbacks. I know Titans fans would love to see something similar. The Bears were very aggressive in the veteran market, both via trade and free agency, as were the Patriots, filled some serious needs. I think Tennessee is poised to spend a lot of money next week and then, set up pretty well in the draft with a lot of picks. Like this roster is getting overhauled this offseason.
Yeah, and it should. I mean, they've got – so it's kind of like – it's a lot like New England last year where – their obvious needs were offensive line, wide receiver, and yet the first thing they did, and they spent a ton of money, they had a ton of cap space as well, but the first thing they did was throw a bucket of money at defensive players. And it was almost like they just looked at the free agent market and they're like, honestly, we'd love to fix the wide receiver group and the offensive line, but there simply aren't those players available in free agency. So instead, we're going to throw the money at the defense, try and do the other thing through the draft. And it worked to a large degree. I sort of feel like you might see a similar thing from Tennessee, except all of a sudden Alec Pierce looks like he's actually going to hit the open market. I think the Titans should be the team that really throws money at Alec Pierce and just says, we're willing to overpay for Alec Pierce to get this, guaranteed 50 yards a game, guaranteed 50-yard catch per game. We're willing to go to a financial place that other teams aren't. He's going to be Tennessee's Milton Williams, right? There will be other teams in the market. There will be other teams that really want him, and then someone's going to draw a financial line in the sand, and the Titans go, I don't care. I'm stepping over your line. I'm willing to put more millions on the end of that. Get him in the building.
I like it. Yeah, with Calvin Ridley expected to be out the door, Chimera DK should just be that wide receiver 3/4 vertical threat. But I love that. Have Pierce as the vertical threat. I wanted Jalen Noel to be paired with Cam Ward last year because of that. Ward's ability to throw the ball down the field and the speed there. So I like that. Let's start with Pierce.
Yeah.
They have needs at center and right guard. I'm assuming that gets attacked in free agency. Zeitler played there last year. If he wants to come back, we'll take him. I would just try to shore the both spots up with free agents right away.
It's in division, so it's not going to happen. But otherwise, they would be exactly the type of team that would be, I think, that should be calling the Jags about Brian Thomas Jr. Like in this world of where are we getting a legit number one wide receiver from? Maybe in the draft you look at Carnell Tate and you say he's that guy. He'll be available at 4. That's just where we're going. But in terms of how do you creatively use some of your resources to go and get a guy that isn't available effectively to most of the NFL, that would be a potential option, again, if it wasn't within the division and then therefore presumably just not going to happen.
I mean, if we get Alec Pierce, then we're in a decent spot there. Go through – I know there was talk about J.C. Latham maybe kicking into guard. I haven't heard if that's really the option. Like if he did kick into right guard and then you got like a Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle.
Or Braden Smith.
Or Braden Smith.
Basically, just take the good players that the Colts are letting hit free agency.
Yeah, take all the Colts players within the division. Just going to throw Juwan Taylor's name out there. He gets a little bit of a bad rap because of the penalties. Like he's decent otherwise. But yeah.
I saw somebody, I think it might have been Ted Wynn, who was saying there was a report out there that said that 2 teams were interested in Mike Evans, the Raiders and the Titans. And Ted had basically said 2 teams that shouldn't be in the Mike Evans marketplace because of where they are in their development arc, with young quarterbacks, and they're going to be a few years away, et cetera, et cetera.
You have different theories on the veteran quarterback and the young quarterback and the veteran receiver, Sam.
Exactly. I'm going to throw the same working theory that I had a couple of years ago for Nuke Hopkins and say, actually, I think there's nothing wrong with giving your young quarterback an established veteran wide receiver to throw to, even if it's not a long-term thing. I think there's value in his development. There's value in the development of Cam Ward having Mike Evans on the perimeter and not having, like upgrading from Ayumaynor to Mike Evans. I think there's value in that, even if Mike Evans isn't going to be there when Cam Ward is 26 years old, hitting his peak. I don't think that those things are contradictory. So if they are, Alec Pierce maybe plan A, if the number for Alec Pierce goes crazy or if you just decide he's not that good internally, I have no problem with paying Mike Evans what Tampa Bay won't pay him and bringing him in to be that. Obviously, it's a shorter-term solution to the problem, but it is a solution to the problem.
And did we just see that with Stephon Diggs, basically a one-year rental for the Patriots? Was he a part? Was he the biggest part of Drake May's development? Was the development going to happen anyway? I don't know, but we've seen a lot of young quarterbacks take a step in year 2, in part with a veteran receiver. Again, even if that guy's not there in the long term, I don't hate it. Where else in free agency? I mean, they have needs all over the roster. I don't think L'Jarius Sneed is on the roster very long at corner. Probably need a little bit of help. They need multiple pass rushers, so they traded for Jermaine Johnson. Olu Oladejo, they drafted him last year in the 2nd round. He was always he was a linebacker conversion in college. He was always a developmental type of player. I think he's a number 3 type. So if David Bailey, or for me, if Ruben Bain is there at 4, I'm taking either one. And I'm having a serious debate about Carnell Tate. And I'm having a debate about Carnell Tate, even if I had Alec Pierce, And, if you had that as the combination, like, hey, if we're going to do well by Cam Ward, I got Tate as a vertical threat, who's a great route runner. I got Pierce as a vertical threat. Cam Ward throws the ball down the field extremely well. I kind of love that as a combination if it ended up falling that way.
Where would you throw your free agent money? Because I think with their war chest, they can do what the Patriots did a year ago, and they can actually play at the, like most teams we've been saying, they need to be playing at the middle level, the second tier of the market. The Titans are the one team where I think they can and should be playing at the top of the market at a couple of positions. We talked about Alec Pierce as a guy they should absolutely throw money at and overpay if needs be to get him in the building. Alec Pierce can be their Milton Williams. Are there other players that they could do that with? I'm thinking of the likes of Jalen Phillips is probably going to get high-end market, or Phillips or Adafe Owe, as young, ascending, or talented players. I wonder, again, this is sort of almost in the Mike Evans bucket, but would they be in the Trey Hendrickson market? I don't know what his number is going to look like because of his age, and that's a slightly awkward one to be doing, but Trey
I would
Hendrickson
rather
is an elite player right now.
If I'm a team like the Bills, if I'm a team that I feel like I'm closer, I feel better about Hendrickson. If I'm the Titans, I'd rather go Owe, who's younger, and I'd rather get a 4-year deal out of Owe. And a lot of that's going to depend on what I feel about in the draft. Like if I thought David Bailey's going to be there at 4, not that it's a good problem to have. Jermaine Johnson, Adafe Owe, and David Bailey, and Oladejo. It's not like you can have too many. But if I'm really having this debate, like if Carnell Tate is actually in play at 4, then paying Adafe Owe I think makes a lot of sense. I would probably do that anyway. I like Owe as an option here. I think corner, they could be in for, say, Jalen Watson. And I know how fans are. They're like, well, not another Chiefs corner. We just had L'Jarius Sneed. Like that doesn't. PTSD. Yeah, that doesn't actually matter. But I've mentioned Monteric Brown as a decent option who had a good little run in Jacksonville. I don't love the cornerback market, though. I really don't.
Can we establish right now that this team should not draft Jeremiah Love at 4 overall?
Yeah, just listen to our discussion here, right? And look, I read the comment. Like the comments were like, well, the Titans have always been good when they have Eddie George or Derrick Henry in the running back. Like, I don't think the history of the franchise matters in this team building discussion. Listen to what we're talking about here. Cam Ward needs a dependable outside receiver. They need speed on the outside. They need a tight end. They need a right guard and a center. They need at least 2 pass rushers. They need a defensive tackle now to complement Jeffrey Simmons now that T'Vondre Sweat is out. They need 1 to 2 starting corners unless you trust Darrell Baker on the outside. That's what they need. Those are all premium positions that I just mentioned.
Right.
Pretty much, right? Like those are all important positions. The last thing they need, even if they end up cutting Tony Pollard, the last thing they need is like, well, let's put the elite running back in here and that'll solve everything. We still only have 3 starters on the offensive line. Yeah. So that's why I'd say hard no on that at 4.
By the way, I think they should potentially be in the Tyler Linderbaum market at center as well. Again, it's a position that you need an upgrade in. You can be the team that overpays for him. Like the Titans have the kind of cash where they can be the team that overpays for a couple players. And as much as I think serial overpaying is a bad thing, I'm starting to come around on the idea that I actually don't mind the exception every now and again for the Milton Williams of the world. Like I think Milton Williams was overpaid last year, but I also think it was the right move. Like, because the flip side is what Carolina did, which is you were on the other side of that. You didn't overpay for Milton Williams, and I think they really could have used Milton Williams. Now, okay, he got injured for a lot of the season. You would have missed him potentially anyway. But like in that binary world of which side of that auction would you rather be, the side that got the guy and paid more money than they wanted, or the side that didn't get the guy but saved their money? I prefer having the guy at this spot. So I'm kind of in the same bucket for Tennessee. They need so much added to this roster acutely, immediately, now. I think they can overpay for a couple of players this offseason. As long as that doesn't become the thing they do for the next 5 years, it's fine.
If it's the right guy, I'm with you, Sam. Especially we keep talking both on air and off air. Like teams aren't letting their stars walk anymore. There aren't a whole lot of high impact free agents. And when you have a first contract quarterback, right, you have a couple of years to overspend, and then you you don't want to have it carry into Cam Ward's, 4th and 5th seasons. What I wouldn't want, like I'm looking at the second wave of edge rushers like Boye Mafe, I would put in that bucket. I don't want to pay Mafe $20 million or $25. I don't want to pay him the overpay. I think always worth it. I think Jalen Phillips, I'm a little worried about the medical. Yeah, I'm worried about the medical on Jalen Phillips, but I think the talent and the production is there. Or Trey Hendrickson, it's there. Like you feel good about it. Again, injury question, but like you feel good about when they're on the field, they're going to produce. I'm not there with a guy like Mafe. So as long as the players are the right players.
Agreed. No, to be clear, I'm talking very specifically about the top of the market. I'm not talking about overpaying for every player they bring into the building. I'm saying you can be the team that wins the auction for what passes for blue chip players in this free agent market, right? There's a couple of them at a couple of positions. Linderbaum, I think, is one of them. Alec Pierce is not a blue chip player, but, there's the supply issue. Like Alec Pierce is a high-end number 2 vertical threat type of player. There's a couple of players in this free agent group where I think they are fairly certain, really important, solid additions to a team, and you can be the team that wins that auction.
So we've given a lot of options in free agency. I think they're going to attack it, throw a lot of money at these players. The same defensive tackles I've mentioned, Sheldon Rankins, Tim Settle. I love those players as compliments to Jeffrey Simmons. I think Tennessee, Robert Saleh is a 4-man rush team. He is a defensive line team. Depending on how the draft falls, they could come out of this offseason with a really impressive defensive line. If they went something like Oweh, Sheldon Rankins, Reuben Bain in the draft, all of a sudden you're like, okay, they went from one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL the last couple of years to they've got something to build around here. So big offseason for the Titans and some opportunity. Have you fired up the mock draft?
Yes. So they actually only have three picks in the first 3 rounds. So I decided, because they pick literally with the first pick of the 4th round, I decided to go into the 4th round as well for them. And
love it.
That's adding some confusion here. The picks so far, Reuben Bain was my pick at number 4 overall. I feel like that's what we would do thing. So what you're going to have, whatever, pick your favorite elite blue chip defensive player is where I would probably go with that. I think the Carnell Tate discussion is going to be there to be had, but if you get Alec Pierce in free agency, I would go with the defensive route. Reuben Bain at 4. Pick number 35 in the 2nd round, Brandon Cisse, the South Carolina cornerback. You had your choice between Cisse and Hood, the local boy, Tennessee Volunteer. I went with Cisse in that particular instance. 3rd round, I went with Mike Washington Jr., the Arkansas running back with the crazy combine performance. You're probably going to hate that. I believe you've already mentioned the model does not love the man. But how much of that, by the way, is, didn't he had a very good year last year in the SEC, right? Is it his career that's dragging his ass down, or everything?
I usually look at a player's career, and then I'm working on iterations that weigh the final season, the final 2 seasons differently, because I think that's all part of the story. But yeah, he was a low production, crazy combine number for my numbers.
Right. So
a lot of fumbles for Washington, then that'll crush you too.
Right. Top of the 4th round, we did the Ted Hurst thing again. Georgia State wide receiver at pick number 101.
So they have Alec Pierce, they have Odafe Oweh, they have Sheldon Rankins, they have Reuben Bain, and I'm just throwing names out there, but those are the types of names that could be on the Titans.
Yeah, and should be
by next season, and the type of impact that they can make here between free agency and the draft.
Right. And again, the Linderbaum thing, I think they could absolutely get into that market and
they get all the top free agents.
Blow somebody out of the water for that, particularly with, Biadasz signed for the Chargers. Suddenly that center marketplace is looking. I mean, maybe they go the second guy, Connor McGovern instead, but I think they should be trying to get one of those top 2 centers available in this free agent group. If you don't want to go the Linderbaum route, go with McGovern, fix that before you get to the draft.
Titans are fixed. We did it. All right, one more division to go. But first, if you ever wanted to go to the NBA Finals, well, now's your chance, courtesy of FanDuel. All you have to do is use your profit boost on an NBA future, and you'll be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. NBA futures let you lock in your pick for who you think will go all the way, whether you think it's the team to win the championship or a conference title. You can visit FanDuel.com/33rd to get started. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. No purchase necessary. Limit one entry for Profit Boost token. Opt-in required. Must apply Profit Boost token on select market. Restrictions apply. See full terms, including methods of entry at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Also want to tell you about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage, but when Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors. After a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at Root.com. On to the NFC South. And right on time. Starting with the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons, who do not have their first-round pick, 8-9 season, technically tied at 8-9 with the two other teams in the NFC South, but finished third. New regime in Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski taking over as head coach. Ian Cunningham taking over as general manager. Matt Ryan taking over the Matt Ryan role of presidency for the Atlanta Falcons, whatever it's called. And so a whole new world in Atlanta. What are we doing here?
It's like the rest of the world. Like, just, once you hit success breeds success, right? Like, once you've made it the first time, you make it for the rest of your life just by default. Like, being a franchise great means at some point you're going to get hired to do whatever for the franchise again. Matt Ryan, Tony Baselli, like, you can just get another job down the road for the franchise.
The rumors in Indy were that Von Miller was vying for a presidential role for the Broncos.
Von Miller?
Yeah. He still might be playing, but like that was the.
Can he do that while he's playing? Like, is it a part-time gig, or does he have to retire to get that job?
On the side, well, Max Crosby is part-time. He's like the GM of Eastern Michigan, so maybe you can. All right, man. What are we doing here? So look. You talk when you draft, when you trade out of the first round for a player, and that player was James Pierce, who had 10 sacks, had a very nice rookie season, but now he had the off-field questions coming into the year, had the off-season multiple felony charge incidents, and then you come into this year without pick 13 overall. It doesn't feel great if you're a Falcons fan, even though you might say if he didn't have the off-field charge, you'd say, look, got our first-round pick a year early. That's fine. But the Falcons, two massive go-for-it moves the last 2 years. Trading back into the first to get Pierce, drafting Michael Penix Jr. The Pierce thing could absolutely blow up in their face. The Penix thing is still TBD, but wasn't great in his sophomore season last year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on the one hand, you look at the team and you're like, the roster's in pretty good shape. The other hand is it needs to be, because you don't really have a lot of ability to do much to it this offseason, because you traded away your first-round pick, you don't have a lot of draft capital, and you don't have a lot of salary cap space to play with either. In part because they franchise tagged Kyle Pitts, which I think is probably the correct move for them. Like, Pitts had a breakout year last year and a contract year. Is he going to be that player going forward? Still we're not really sure. Maybe the switch finally went on for Kyle Pitts. And if he is, or if it did rather, then he's an elite caliber tight end threat. If it didn't, you don't want to have committed huge long-term money to him. So I think franchise tagging him, keeping him on a contract year again is the right thing for them to do. So now you've still got Drake London, you've still got Kyle Pitts, you've still got Bijan Robinson. Okay, Tyler Algier is leaving via free agency almost certainly, but that's a pretty good nucleus. The starting offensive line is still intact. Like, the offense could and should still be good if Michael Penix Jr. is capable of being a decent quarterback, and obviously that's Kevin Stefanski's job one. The defense is in pretty good order if, again, James Pierce Jr. is going to be a part of this defense, and that is going to be a TBD as the legal process works its way out.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like they feel like Atlanta feels like one of the teams where the offseason moves because of their limitations aren't going to feel like they made massive improvements, but the foundation's still pretty good. I would say their biggest need depends on Pierce. So they could be looking for an edge rusher, but they've invested a lot at that spot. Wide receiver 2 next to Drake London. Darnell Mooney is out, so definitely need somebody there next to London. Running back 2, a compliment to Bijan, not massive. And then defensive tackle, David Onyemata moving on, and Ruka Rororo and Brandon Dorless. Like, I don't know if they've got enough impact bodies up front. So and we'll see what happens with Jesse Bates. He was one of those cut candidates, and see if they keep him around. So the needs aren't massive. The acute needs aren't massive, but I think the foundation's solid, but there's still some work to do here.
I think you could also throw them into the market at cornerback and linebacker. Again, not necessarily.
Caden Ellis is out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you've got some turnover. You can use some starters. They're not necessarily the most critical positions of, crazy value. They need to be the team that's basically picking off their favorite players in this cheap end of the free agent marketplace, where I think there's some good players to be had. But that's where they need to be playing because they don't really have the flexibility to be anywhere else.
So is there a receiver who makes sense to complement Drake London in free agency? Because you want a wide receiver 2, and we know, there might be a second round option there for them. Is there anybody that makes sense? Stefanski's offense, I don't love the options here.
I would be
for like like a Tim Patrick. Bring in Tim Patrick, of course. But
yeah, the great Tim Patrick, who didn't have an amazing season for them. They would be an intriguing team for a Wan'Dale Robinson, who again more of a high volume underneath short slot type of guy, but then did show this vertical element to his game last year. I'm not saying you're going to make that's not going to be his full-time gig, but I think he could be an interesting receiver within this offense. I'd be interested in kicking the tires from their point of view on Marquise Brown. Obviously, the Kansas City stint didn't go well at all. Just kept getting injured, and maybe that's going to be who he is from now on going forward as a smaller guy. But I think Marquise Brown could still play within this offense and make some good things happen.
So the veteran receivers to help Penix along. Clearly, that's going to be a fascinating one too. The whole league was not sold on Michael Penix Jr. There were rumors that Minnesota maybe wanted him before they ended up with J.J. McCarthy. Clearly, the Falcons loved him enough to take him at number 8. But going into the draft, we thought he might fall to the second round, right, or be available in the second. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be interesting to see. Like, they're going to give him a shot. How much does Kevin Stefanski, like Michael Penix Jr.? I think your goal, though, is to put him in the best position to succeed this year. And then if you cut ties in a year, then you're back in the QB market and you go from there. So what can we do to give him the best position to succeed? The whole the O-line returning all starters. Caleb McGarry missed all of last season, but he returns. So you pretty much have 5 starters back in the O-line. It really is, who's that pass catcher next to London, and who fits Penix? He doesn't like throwing to the middle of the field either. He likes to just rip deep outs and throw you to your big-bodied receivers. Like, honestly, a guy like Tim Patrick might actually work. Yeah. If you just want to get the big-bodied, contested catch types, to complement, like Gabe Davis. Like, just get your big-bodied outside type receivers for Michael Penix, because that's where he shines.
I mean, honestly, the best fit for them is Alec Pierce, but they're not going to be in that marketplace. They don't have the resources to be in the Alec. So you're looking for, like, who's your best, who's the cheap version, who's the poor man's Alec Pierce in this wide receiver group. And you're right, like, it is a guy like Gabe Davis, maybe Tim Patrick. Marquise Brown's a different type of receiver, but I think could bring some of the same things. Wan'Dale Robinson, a very different style of receiver, but I think could have a role within this thing. Brandon Cooks, you could kick the tires on as well. Obviously not a long-term gig, but a short-term guy that can still, I think, make an impact in a receiving core.
That's where they are as a roster, though, right? I mean, you want to get younger, and you want to have some players to build around for the future. But I think you're going to have some short-term fixes here as they get their draft capital back and get their finances back in order.
They're another team, I think, that should also give Jalen Naylor a look coming out of Minnesota. I think that would make some sense within that offense.
I like it. So we've got some receiver options there.
Who do you want to bring in at linebacker?
I'm looking through that. I was looking at Nakobe Dean. I don't know if Jeff Ulbrich if he wants a slightly bigger linebacker. Like Caden Ellis did such a good job blitzing, playing coverage. Dean's a better run stopper and blitzer than just pure coverage player, but I think he could maybe make an impact in this defense. Anybody you have an eye on?
Just for the comedy value, I like the idea of pairing Jamal Adams with Divine Diablo and being, two former safety linebacker converts.
Former Raiders.
Also former Raiders.
Devin Bush had his best season in Cleveland with Stefanski as head coach.
He did. Having said that, I mean, can you think of – there won't be too many defenses. The only defense I can think of that would be more of a polar opposite than the Jim Schwartz defense he's coming from would be Brian Flores. So if Devin Bush, who's basically been awful in the NFL except in Jim Schwartz's defense, if I'm taking him as a free agent, I want a defense as close to Jim Schwartz's defense as possible, and Ulbrich's is not that. So I wouldn't go there with him.
I was wondering why you were bringing up Flores. I thought you had one of those. Thought you had the wires crossed there for a minute.
No.
Okay, good. All right, so you don't want that.
I don't want Devin Bush. I would not trust that within this defense.
And then defensive tackle, I think the same group of free agents. That makes a Shelby Harris. I've mentioned a few different times. Again, I don't want the bigger names. I want the second group. DJ Reader could be an interesting name as a 330-pounder. They don't have that type of body or potential effectiveness up front at defensive tackle.
He can still play, and his market may now be pretty light because of injury history, because of age, like all those kinds of things. Yeah, that might be a pretty sneaky good move, actually.
And then even with or without James Pierce. So you've got Jalen Walker, fellow first rounder from last year. You have Braylon Trice, who's, hasn't even played. Right. Don't know what you can get from him, but they probably, even if Pierce were back, you'd still like to have a good, third pass rusher that you could trust. Arnold Ebiketie hits free agency. So maybe going back to like the Joseph Asai's and the Arden Keys and that next wave of pass rusher. You don't want them they could all start in a pinch if Pierce is unable to play, and they're really good number threes if Pierce is around. So I'd go that route at edge rusher. Did you get fire up the draft?
Yeah, we got 2 picks in the first 3 rounds. We got pick number 48 and we got pick number 79. Pick number 48, it was too much of a slam dunk to turn down. I got Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker from Texas Tech. I plug him in. He's your new Keith Brooking. He's your new Keith Brooking within the defense. And then 3rd round, 79, Dalen Everett, Georgia cornerback. Local boy, keep him in.
Love it. I do wonder if what the receivers are going to look like there, and if they with a whole new regime. I keep mentioning the name Chris Bell for teams that can think longer term. I'm not saying you get him in the second. I'm just like, what the teams that can think longer term, taking a guy coming off of injury makes sense. Jeremy Bernard from Alabama could make sense as just a good, dependable receiver if we're talking about a compliment to Drake London. I'm a huge Elijah Surratt fan, and he's the type of receiver that would work well with Michael Penix. Again, I don't know how long Penix is even going to be there, so I don't want to draft people just for the fit. Right. But if you want an outside receiver that you can trust in, contested situations and just, rip your deep outs to, there's Surratt would be a nice fit there as well. All of those players are potentially available with the Falcons' 2nd round pick. Mm-hmm. Do we fix the Falcons?
Yep. Can't believe you just let me drop a Keith Brooking reference and barely even acknowledged it.
I appreciated it. Let us know in the chat if you remember Keith Brooking. We have a lot of people our age listening. That was the next Keith Brooking. That was a great job, Sam. That was a great job. Mm-hmm. He was on the Super Bowl team in '98, right? For the Falcons? That would have been his time period, right?
I guess,
yeah. I think so. Okay, now you got me excited. I'm going to go look up Keith Brooking. 150 tackle type of player. Yeah. Oh, he was a rookie in '98.
Yeah,
That was his
so
rookie
just.
season. He didn't play. Didn't play much. 144 tackles back in '03. Led the league with 126 solo. There you go. Kudos. Good work.
Mm-hmm.
Done with the Falcons.
Done.
On to the Carolina Panthers. Listen up, Dr. Eager. Panthers, the NFC South Division champion. Carolina Panthers. They lost in the wild card round to the Rams, but man, they did a nice job this season, playing well every other week and being more competitive maybe than we thought, getting things back on track. Last year at this time, they spent a little bit in free agency. We talk about them missing out on Milton Williams, but they get Trayvon Merrick. They got a few defensive linemen. They started to use some of their cap space on some veterans. Still more work to do on the defensive side of the ball in particular. Some help on offense needed as well. Big offseason for the Panthers, including, kind of a decision point here for Bryce Young. We have not had a QB decision point in a while for a first rounder. We have Bryce Young and CJ Stroud coming up because the 2022 class was only Kenny Pickett. The 21 class was Trevor Lawrence and a whole bunch of guys who did not stick around with their drafted team. So it's really been a while before we've had this, like, who's the next $40-50 million quarterback? And so we're at decision point coming up here for Bryce Young and the Panthers.
The most recent comparable I can think of is kind of like the Baker Mayfield decision, right? Before the year where he hurt his shoulder, it was like, does Baker or does he not get the $100 million contract from the Cleveland Browns, right? And then they didn't give it to him. He went into the next season, hurt his shoulder in week 2, played through it for the entire season, basically, before getting shut down. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Actually, we're going to pivot to Deshaun Watson, and everything changed, right? But this feels like the year going into the year where Baker did his shoulder. That feels like where we are for Bryce Young right now, which is we've seen some good things, we've seen some bad things. We don't really know yet whether he's the guy. Let's see what happens this year.
So to put him in the best position to succeed, love the Teteroa McMillan pick at 8 overall last year. We missed the boat a little bit. I think during the mock draft period, we said pass rush was such a major need for Carolina. Jalen Walker, choose your favorite edge rusher. They were going to Carolina in every mock draft, and then they go Teteroa McMillan, and he had a really nice rookie season. He's your number one. Jalen Coker continues to impress every time he's out there. Really nice 1-2 punch there. You could say, hey, we might need Xavier Legette's your 3. He's starting to lose a little confidence in the former first rounder, but you could use maybe a little bit of depth there at receiver. I think they need an impact tight end. I think it's a good year for either free agent. Like if TJ Hawkinson ends up getting released, do you bring in a Hawkinson as a pass catcher at this point, just an all-around tight end at this point in his career? So I think that's going to be a big need. Don't know what happens at left tackle. Ike Ekwonu under contract, but coming off, he's got a bad injury.
I know.
Don't know when he's going to be back. What's that?
I know what happens at left tackle.
Oh, what you got?
You know what happens at left tackle. You know what we're doing.
Oh, Josh Jones.
Hell yeah, we're bringing in Josh Jones.
Signing
This
Josh.
is the most obvious move in the entire offseason. We've got a left tackle who's down with a knee injury. We don't know when he's coming back. We got Josh Jones, who we know is solid at left tackle and not a long-term solution, and nobody wants to pay him any money. Bring him in and start him for 9 weeks or whatever. It's just, it's too obvious. How could it not happen?
So we're definitely doing that. We know that's happening. Austin Corbett, the center, free agent, like 2/3 of the NFL. Center is a need on paper here for the Panthers. We got to figure that out. And then defensively, they took some steps forward. I think a linebacker is a major need, and in a good year to get linebackers, and they need more pass rushers. Like you could still improve, whether it's an interior penetrator to put next to Derek Brown, or whether it's just a little bit more juice next to Nick Scorton, Princely Umanmielen. They just need a little bit more off the edge. So what else are we doing here for Carolina?
Yeah, I think definitely do need a stopgap at left tackle. To me, Josh Jones is the obvious, absolute slam dunk answer to that question. If they're not going the Josh Jones route, I'm not 100% sure where you would go in terms of a stopgap left tackle. Maybe Remember when the Chiefs signed Juwan Taylor? They were talking about playing him at left tackle before everyone was like, that's crazy. And they reversed course in that
I'm not
pretty
doing
quickly.
that. There's no good history of
No.
year 5, 6, 7 right tackles flipping to the left or vice versa
Right.
in the NFL. You could flip them early in their career, not at this point. So
the alternative, though, is that you sign guys that you know are just bad left tackles, and that's not much better. So, to me, the Josh Jones thing is just so freaking obvious that I cannot believe you would go in any other direction, because the alternative is either taking players that are not great and asking them to flip sides like Juwan Taylor, or taking players that are just probably not good to begin with and being like, let's hope he holds up for 12 games.
All right, so let's do that. At tight end, I love the idea of Hawkinson.
Hawkinson's a great idea. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So every now and then. If they don't get him, Cade Otton from Tampa Bay, Chigakonkwo from Tennessee, I think you have to grab one of those players. Once again, there are options in the draft. It also has the makings of, if Carolina wants to fill needs in the draft, and it's like they grab a linebacker in a good linebacker class, they grab a tight end, they grab I don't know if they need a backup running back necessarily, but it might feel uncomfortable if they come away with like a linebacker and a tight end or something with their first few picks draft-wise. So I'd rather fill those early on if possible, so you could grab some pass rushers. I love the TJ. I've mentioned TJ Parker for a lot of people. Maybe it's a little high at 18, but
right.
I really like the fit for him in Carolina, and a lot of teams between 18 and 32. I really like TJ Parker. I think he could be in play there for them as well.
The chat is asking the level of faith in Jonathan Brooks coming back healthy. I think at this point you basically can't even rely on it.
There was a report that things are going well there, but like what's he played 5 snaps in 2 years?
And just like immediate back-to-back injuries. Like to me, he's in the Tank Dell bucket now, which is if he comes back and becomes the player that he was supposed to be, like that's amazing. It's a phenomenal bonus to your roster, but the chances of that happening, I think, are minimal. And you basically have to proceed as if he doesn't exist.
I think you can roll with Chuba Hubbard, Trevor Etienne as the backup, and then the outside chance that Brooks comes back. I liked him so much coming out.
Right, but it's the same knee. Consecutive ACLs, maybe again, I think you treat him like Tank Dell, and you're like, if he comes back and suddenly he becomes the player that we thought we were drafting off the back of back-to-back ACLs, which is not unprecedented. In fact, even within the Carolina Panthers, it's not unprecedented. Thomas Davis did it, right? At least once in his career, came back from basically back-to-back knee injuries. It's possible. It's just, I don't think you can even. You basically have to assume he doesn't exist right now until proven otherwise.
Yeah. I still don't know if there's any moves that they need to make at running back, even with Rico Dowdle leaving. I really want to see them attack linebacker this offseason. I've mentioned Alex Anzalone for a few different teams. I think he would be a good fit. You mentioned Quincy Williams from the Jets. I think he'd be a good fit. Alex Singleton from the Broncos. Like, give me a good, dependable starter at linebacker, because they've been weak. They've been weak there the last couple of years, relying on Trayvon Merrick playing in the box a little bit more than I think they'd like. So give me one of those free agent linebackers.
Are we going to – so you've already taken care of Hawkinson, so we don't get to – luckily, we don't have the argument in the war room with the doctor that Kenyon Sadiq is available at 19 overall and is a potential solution there.
Oh, man, there's your backup running back too. In my world, here's your running back option.
Here's your solution.
Oh, it's tempting. It's really tempting in this draft, right? Because I'd love to get a pass rusher, but once you get to that point in the first round, I don't know who you have. You'd rather have more faith. I mean, Keldrick Falk as the hot button question pass rusher. He's a very good football player at 20 who could stop the run and has, I think, the movement and body to develop as a pass rusher. But I hate drafting anyone who hasn't done it at high level.
Basically, no matter who the option is at 19 overall, there's going to be an argument with the doctor. Either you're going to be dealing with drafting a tight end in the first round, a Keldrick Falk who doesn't have the production profile, or an Akeem Mesidor who's 25 years old. Again, no matter who you want to take, there's going to be an argument with the data somewhere that says he's missing something.
TJ Parker peaked 2 years ago rather than his final season.
Right.
Like all the pass rushers have a wart that stands out as don't want this guy.
Oh, Here we go. This is gonna be the draft's gonna upset people. All right,
Peter Woods would be good for them.
Sure.
I know they got Turk Wharton in free agency last year. They've got Derek Brown, but they could make all those guys work.
Factoring in that we made a lot of moves in free agency to help this team, albeit not massively expensive ones. In the first round, I went with Akeem Mesidor, the Miami pass rusher. Great production profile as long as you only look at last year. And he's going to be 25 years old when the season starts. And to be fair, there are reasons why he only had the great production profile last year. But anyway, Mesidor, first-round pick. Second-round pick, number 51 overall, Josiah Trotter, Missouri linebacker to come in and help that linebacker core. And then the wild card pick in the third round, we went with quarterback Drew Aller out of Penn State.
There we go. Oh, man.
He doesn't need to play, all right, at all, year one, theoretically. Bryce Young can have this year. This is the motivation. Number one, it's motivation for Bryce Young to be like, hey, you're now on the hot seat. If you don't pull it out of somewhere this year, we're just going to turn it over to somebody else. And then number two, you get a wildly raw, talented prospect who just didn't get better in his college career, and you get to sit him for a year and see if you can turn him into something.
I love it. Somewhere, somehow, somewhere, some organization of the 300 plus evaluators, somebody has a first round grade on Drew Aller. Somebody does.
Sure, probably.
Besides like the internet, I'm talking like in the NFL. Somebody's like, yeah, I want Aller. I'm all in.
You think in a building, in an NFL building somewhere, there's a scout that's like, this is 100% a first round player in this draft.
Maybe not first round, but like there are they're blaming James Franklin, they're blaming the receivers, they're blaming Penn State's whiteouts, they're blaming something, right? Somebody didn't develop Aller. They're blaming the offensive coordinator because it's a college scheme. Someone's blaming the environment around Drew Aller and saying,
right,
give this guy some professional, give this guy Dave Canales, and boom, we'll have something in a couple of years.
Remember,
our guys, we'll coach him up.
When Dave Canales got that job in Carolina, we were like, look at this guy's track record with getting the most out of quarterbacks. At times, he did that in Carolina with Bryce Young. Now, he's given up play calling duties, right? And I think actively said himself that he didn't do the best job in the world of putting Bryce Young in the best position to succeed with some of the play calls. So, but yeah, like, look, forget the name Drew Aller for the moment. Like, the Panthers spending a third-round draft pick on a quarterback in this draft. Drew Aller, Nussmeier, whoever your developmental guy is that you like, Peyton out of North Dakota State, like whoever you think could potentially be a starting quarterback in the future, them spending a third-round draft pick on one this year would not, I think, be crazy. Like, I'm kind of joking with the motivation for Bryce Young thing, but also kind of not. Like, sending a real signal that it's now or never for you is, I don't think, the worst idea in the world. And then more importantly, having some kind of theoretical egg in a different basket if Bryce Young doesn't get any better is not a bad idea either. So, again, anytime you're drafting a quarterback in the third round, what are the chances that guy's the starter in 2 years' time? Minimal. But it's zero if you don't have one at all. So,
I like a developmental QB for the Panthers. There are some other needs that need to be filled. Got to figure out the short-term left tackle, pass rusher, tight end, everything that we mentioned, linebacker, but and just overall more defensive line help. But yeah, I think it's a good year to bring in a developmental QB and just get somebody in the building, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Did we fix the Panthers?
Sure.
All within time.
Hopefully the doctor will let us know.
Let us know where we're wrong. Let's go New Orleans Saints. Should have gotten Nick Underhill in for this. No one knows the Saints like Nick Underhill of New Orleans football, and I'm sure he's used the AI to already run through all of their moves this offseason. Just a great finish to the season for the Saints. Tyler Shuck developing, looking good down the stretch. They feel like they've got their QB of the future. We got Chris Olave still there. And for the first time in a while, they're not in the most cap hell of any team in the NFL. They're digging themselves out. It's a different style Nolan Saints team here, Sam. We're at a different point in their lifespan for the first time in 10 to 15 years.
I think you could even say they have a pretty healthy salary cap situation for the first time in at least a decade, right? Like this is a long time.
We're days before the start of the league year.
And
it's not red.
Positive. Yeah.
It's positive, and it's not at the bottom. It's usually negative 78 million or something at this
point. The number doesn't
so.
start with a minus figure, which it's probably the first time in a decade that's been true for the Saints.
So some reasons for optimism here. They've got some very specific needs. I think a receiver next to Chris Olave, absolutely need that. They restructured Juwan Johnson at tight end this week. He's still solid there. They need a left guard, but maybe they need a right guard. We've been trying to replace Cesar Ruiz for 4 years now, but left guard specifically with 4 other returning starters. Running back room's getting a little bit older with Alvin Kamara. And then defensively, I think they need some impact defensive linemen. That's been a multi-year issue. They were getting some great play out of Chase Young last year, maybe the best play of his career down the stretch. Carl Granderson next to him, but needs some help on the interior and maybe another pass rusher as well, and a little bit in the secondary. So they're in a decent spot compared to where they were just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they're certainly in a decent spot compared to a couple of years ago. And they, for the first time in a while, they've actually got some pretty solid flexibility to actually make some moves and make some things happen. But the roster, I think, still does need quite a lot of work. So, it's good news, bad news. Good news is you can actually do some stuff. The bad news is you do need to do quite a lot of things. I think you're right. I would be looking for a pair of guards this offseason. Certainly, I think an acute need at left guard, but I would be looking to bring in to replace both guard spots. Wide receiver, anybody on the defensive line. Cornerback, I think, is still an area you could add. Linebacker potentially as well. Running back, like we're talking about most of the roster, could use a body or two.
All right. So when I was talking to Nick and his coworker Mike Triplett at the where were we just? The scouting combine, I mentioned Isaac Seumalo as the left guard option for them too. If they wanted the veteran presence to step in there, I think a buy low, depending on what Wyatt Teller's market is. If you want to try to rejuvenate his career and have him compete with Cesar Ruiz, not the worst thing in the world. Got to get one. Then we brought up Tevin Jenkins too as kind of like a Dalton Reisner who seems to be productive, but maybe a little devalued by the NFL.
Just incredibly injury prone as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's March, Sam. I want all the injured players on my team because I don't have to deal with the repercussions of their injuries.
It's not your
NFL
problem.
Team.
Yeah.
But I would buy low on all the injured players like Tevin Jenkins.
Also, yeah, that's not your problem. That's the medical guy's issue. I brought in a good player.
I'm presenting the name. The assumption is my medical people will say, Steve, you're crazy if need be, right? This guy's got 8 injuries in 7 years. Like we need to, temper expectations here. And if that's the case, I'll say, okay, fine, we'll move on.
Well, there's also this tension. I mean, this happens in soccer as well, where like the medical guys are out here being like, load management, don't play him more than 45 minutes. He's coming back from something. You're gonna blow his hamstring. Meanwhile, the coach is like, do I have this player or not? This is a good player. He needs to be out there. It's an important game. Get him out.
I'm in the blue tent. Is he ready? Is he ready?
You're Brian Daboll, like pushing your way into the blue tent, being like, get his ass on the field. I need him out there. Tevin Jenkins would be interesting for that reason. The other guy I can't believe you brought up for this exact reason is Elijah Vera Tucker, who high-end caliber starter, theoretically, but coming off injuries and has quite an extensive list of them in his career at this point.
Center Eric McCoy has his own injury issues, but like when he's out there, Kelvin Banks was solid as a rookie at left tackle. Talise Fuanga is solid at right tackle. I mean, if you add one good piece to this offensive line, you're feeling pretty good about at least 4 out of 5. You had 2 good pieces. You're talking a healthy Saints line is one of top 10 in the NFL potentially. So they're close. And so I think they can invest there in free agency. Who do you like at receiver to complement Chris Olave? They traded for Devon Vele last year. I don't have full faith in him as a 2. I don't mind him as a 3. Who do we like at receiver here? Is this a Romeo Doubs type of fit with Olave?
Yeah, so the problem, you don't just need a complement for Olave. You also potentially need a replacement number one, his history with concussions means you may only ever be a game away from him not being in the lineup. And then number 2, because of his history with concussions, are you going to give him the big money long-term contract that he deserves from his on-field play and that, he's coming due for? Can you can you commit that kind of money to him with that potential risk, which I think is, I mean, look, any receiver is a hit away from being concussed and out of the game, but Chris Olave's is now concerning enough that I think it has to factor into that evaluation, that discussion, that negotiation. So, you might not just need, hey, who's the number 2 to bring in opposite Olave? You might need someone that, like, can we find a core that's deep enough that if we take him out of the lineup, we're happy?
I don't know if this fits perfectly here, but what are your thoughts on Treylon Burks as a reclamation project? Fellow 2022 first rounder, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, draft classmate.
Treylon Burks is it's not guilty pleasure, my toxic trait. My toxic trait is liking players like Treylon Burks, which is like, look, he's an incredible athlete and a talented playmaker. And at high school and college, you can just give those guys the ball and say, go. The play started, make people miss and score, right? It's schoolyard stuff, right? The problem is in the NFL, you basically can't get away with that anymore, and they need to actually play a position to a high degree. You need to have some technical savvy at a specific position, whether it's running back, tight end, or wide receiver, or quarterback, in order to make that function. And I will never, ever learn that it just doesn't work. You can't take these guys that are just athletes that play no position really and hope that they're going to become something at the NFL level. Every now and again they will, because one of these guys is going to have the ability to run routes or whatever, and they can turn into a running back or a tight end or a wide receiver. But most of the time they end up failing because they can't do the fundamentals at the position they're going to be needed at. Treylon Burks, we saw even last year in Washington, he's got one of the top 10 catches in the NFL last year belongs to Treylon Burks, right?
Yep.
He made a spectacular one-handed catch in the end zone for a touchdown. And sure, give me a big, strong athlete to stick in as my wide receiver on the roster somewhere. I certainly want him in training camp, but I wouldn't even assume he's making my roster in the final 53.
All right, fine. Wide receiver 4 or 5.
But the way you would bring in, John Ross every year for training camp, give me all the Treylon Burks in the world every year for training camp. If nothing else, it will make training camp more entertaining for the crazy plays he's able to make, that won't translate to the NFL.
The Saints have had this revolving door of Deontay Hardy, Rashid Shaheed, the vertical threats. I don't know if Mason Tipton is really that guy for them, but if they want to play the Khalif Raymond game, Tyquan Thornton, I think they could use one of those straight up deep threats as a complement. My wide receiver 4 deep threat, they could use one of those guys. Pick up one of them. I don't know who the best 2 is for Olave, but I do. You got to get somebody.
I would bring in a couple. I would bring in a couple of receivers to this core. I think you're not going to solve it by one guy. I think you can try and do it with multiple. I think Romeo Doubs makes a lot of sense. Like he is a very good 2. He's not going to be your number 1, I don't think. But if he was suddenly the lead guy in the receiving core, it's not the worst thing in the world. We've seen that with Green Bay. But I would bring in Doubs and then maybe another guy that you could count on as some sort of volume target. Like, I mean, Wan'Dale I want to put everywhere. Maybe Wan'Dale's number is going to go too high, but a Greg Dortch coming out of Arizona would be pretty interesting. As a guy that can catch a lot of passes, a good chain mover, be your slot guy. Dobbs can play, Olave can play. Like, that's a trio that can coexist.
Always Greg Dortch. I should have recommended him to every team.
The
guy's awesome. All right, so we got some receiver options, gave him some guard options. Let me throw one more guard out there. Graham Glasgow, who was the center for the Lions but played better at guard previously in his career, could be an option for some of these teams that have the guard need. Defensively, again, Chase Young playing well, Carl Granderson getting a little bit older, but they're solid there. They're losing Cam Jordan this offseason as well. First time in like 15 years they won't have Cam Jordan, so they could use another pass rusher on the outside. And, Brian Brzee, kind of disappointed. Like a lot of their recent first-round draft picks, Brzee, Peyton Turner, Isaiah Foskey, like some of these recent first and second round defensive linemen have not panned out for the Saints, and I think that's been one of their biggest weaknesses these last few years. So if they go the veteran route, a couple of those interior pass rushers that I've mentioned for every other team, your Sheldon Rankins or Tim Settles of the world, I think would make sense here to add some depth. And then
I'm going to enlist your help for the mock draft because I think this is actually an interesting decision for them, the way it's fallen. So the mock draft, as it currently fell for them, the available players. So, all right, I'm just going to. Mendoza, Reese, Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love, Francis Mauigoa, Carnell Tate, and David Bailey were the first 7 picks, which leaves on the board for the Saints an option of Reuben Bain, Caleb Downs, the top corners, the top tackles outside of Mauigoa, and then everybody else, right? So it's basically Downs is the one, like it's almost the one position they don't need is a safety, plus it's a safety, but it's Caleb Downs. Or Reuben Bain is just your monstrous defensive lineman to come in and wreck shop.
I'm taking Bain, man.
Done.
Give me Reuben Bain, Chase Young, Carl Granderson. They have not had line of scrimmage impact players since they had Trey Hendrickson as edge 3, right? Since they had Hendrickson and Jordan and Granderson, whoever else they had in the interior at the time, it was just a really good D line. I like that. They've got some good options. I think Carnell Tate's legitimately in play.
Yeah,
for them.
Well, I think that would be a good pick for them. He was just gone at this point. It was an unusual first 7 picks that left them with this decision. So
they're one of the few teams I would love Bain or Tate if they were available there. Yep, go ahead.
3-round mock for them. Number 8 overall, Reuben Bain from Miami. I think that would be a great pick for them. 42 overall, Keith Abney from Arizona State, the cornerback. And then 3rd round, Elijah Surratt, the wide receiver from Indiana.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so I like Surratt a lot. I think he'd be a really good value 3rd rounder. I know some people aren't going to love his separation skills. I think he can play, though. Abney, athletic corner out of Arizona State, can compete opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry, compete with Quincy Riley, last year's rookie, and then Reuben Bain, add him to the defensive line. We fixed the Saints?
Sure.
If you're a Saints fan, go check out New Orleans football, Nick Underhill, doing some work with us here with the 33rd team, and he's awesome. We'll have him on the show again soon for all your Saints news and information, everything you need. Mm-hmm. All right, let's wrap it up. 32 out of 32, the final team to fix in 5 minutes. The Tampa Bay Bucs did not win the division for the first time in 3 years. They've got a new offensive coordinator, old friend Zach Robinson. Todd Bowles returns as head coach. Might not have Mike Evans for the first time since 2014. So we got some questions there for the Bucs. What are we going to do with Tampa Bay? Got Baker Mayfield back, some questions on defense, particularly pass rusher, and some potential links to Trey Hendrickson in free agency. So Trey said he wouldn't mind playing for the Bucs, and they have a massive need there. What are we doing here for Tampa Bay?
I still think the most likely thing to happen is that Mike Evans ends up back in Tampa Bay.
Really?
And I would do that if I'm the Bucs. I would bring him back for another year. Maybe he's not the player that he once was. I still think he makes an impact to that receiving core and makes things better. And I think Baker likes throwing him the ball as well. I still think that they are. I think if they wanted Mike Evans and Levante David back, I think they could get them both back again. You know, I think they're letting. I think there's enough.
This is the first year that Evans got banged up, didn't go over 1,000 yards. Levante, the first year, maybe it felt like he was losing it a little bit. That's the only caveat here. Do they think it's finally time here?
I think they're letting him test the market. I think if somebody came in with a crazy offer that's like, oh, we're willing to pay Mike Evans like he's still, the peak Mike Evans, blah, 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 then sure, then he'll go. But I think absent that, and I don't think a team is going to give him that, I think he'll end up back in Tampa Bay on a 2-year whatever deal.
All right, so let's say we do that, and even if we don't, Jalen McMillan, Emeka Ibuka, Chris Godwin at this point, we feeling good about that as a group, and Tez Johnson.
Yes,
I think we're feeling pretty good about the receivers with or without Mike Evans.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a good receiving core either way. Like, I don't think that needs – I would bring back Mike Evans. I think that's the only attention that the receiving core would need is to bring back Mike Evans. If you don't have Mike Evans, it's still fine. I might draft somebody, but I'm still okay with my receiving core. So, yeah, needs that they have, I don't think receiving core really fits into them other than I would bring back Mike Evans for a modest deal.
They have a big need at tight end. Cade Otton hits free agency here. So they're going to have to either figure something out in free agency, or they might be looking at Kenyon Sadiq or some kind of tight end in the draft. I know Zach's offense, they liked having Charlie Warner as a blocking back or blocking tight end in Atlanta. I'm suggesting Charlie Kolar, former Baltimore Raven, as a guy who's a really good inline blocker. Now, this isn't solving your tight end issue. I want that dude on my team because I think he can do a little bit more as a pass catcher too. I remember him and Isaiah Likely were both drafted in the 4th round by the Ravens. So Kolar, bringing him into Tampa Bay as my why. And then maybe Chigakonkwo too. Some like more of a move tight end. They might have to go 2 tight ends in free agency here to solve that problem. So you don't go into the draft with a major need.
Yeah, or I mean, it is a pretty good year in the draft for needing tight ends. So maybe they're happy enough going into the draft with that kind of need, knowing that they don't have to force it in round 1, but knowing that they're probably going to come out of this draft with a tight end, especially if tight ends become a complicated position because it's like technically, if you're deploying 2 of them on the field at the same time, then one of the guys might be your second tight end, but the first guy is a blocker. It's a sort of unusual world where 1 versus 2 is not necessarily. It's not like it's not higher up in the depth chart. They're just doing different things within the it's like a 2-down running back versus a 3rd down running back.
Right.
As opposed to wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. But either way, they might be happy enough to go into the draft knowing that we need to come out of this with a receiving option at tight end.
The other thing offensively, they lose Rachaad White at running back.
Yep.
Tucker at running back. I don't know how Zach felt about Tyler Algier as the complementary piece to Bijan Robinson, but he's, I think, a perfect complement to Bucky Irving if they want to go that route, plus the familiarity with the system. So that'd be my suggestion there at running back if you can get Algier on the cheap. And then the O-line, maybe they could upgrade at left guard potentially. They're pretty much returning their 5 starters, though, up front.
Yeah, remember, their offensive line was a mess last year, but just because of injuries. I mean, Tristan Wirfs last time, Gedeke, Graham Barton had to kick out to left tackle. That made center worse. Like, everything was a disaster until they got healthier.
And then the big questions on defense, it was not right last year, Todd Bowles' defense. They were getting picked apart. There's no pass rush. Weak on the back end. Linebacker was a question because you didn't get the elite play that you'd gotten for, almost 15 years or whatever from Levante David. Servassier Dennis struggled in coverage, so they might need 2 linebackers, even with Levante David coming back, if you want to get that position better for the future.
And he really
they have to
last year for the first time. Like last year. Last year would be the first year where you're like, Levante David's age might have caught up with him.
Since 2012, which is remarkable.
Crazy. But like the first year where you're like, Father Time might have actually caught him up now.
Yeah. And then just pass rush. Yaya Diaby's had a lot of success at various points in his career, but some kind of compliment to him. Anthony Nelson is still back he's in your edge 3-4 type of bucket. That's why. Are they going to go get a Trey Hendrickson? Are they going to get a Jalen Phillips? What are they going to do? Because I think they should absolutely be in that market.
Yeah. I think they could be in anywhere in defense. I think they could actually spend some resources. They're in need at cornerback as well. I don't know. It's not a great corner year. Like, where do you want to throw your money? Even if you wanted to throw free agent money at corner, Reek Woolen would be fun just to pair him with the other most spectacular athletic cornerback from that year.
Well, they had Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish last year. Parrish played really well. Morrison, who I did like coming out, but he had the hip questions and injury issues. He did not look great. They had him platooning a little bit with Jamel Dean last year. So I don't know. I think they want to trust him in year 2, and Parrish. I don't know if they're going to attack that in free agency or not, but you just need some development there for Morrison in particular.
Yeah, I think you just need to bring in some defensive bodies with free agency. I think you can throw some money around, try and do it judiciously, try and obviously get players that are good that you think will upgrade the defense. But I think all 3 levels they could use throwing some money at it.
Cap-wise, what are they, middle of the pack?
Yeah.
Are they like a Joey Bosa 1-year flyer type? If you miss out on the long-term players, if you just need a pass rusher for a year?
Yeah, I guess. I'm just kind of out on the Joey Bosa market now after last year. I would
warm
weather
bringing though.
Yeah,
but humidity. Maybe humidity.
Does
that affect you? Is that bad?
I don't know. They might be. I mean, if you don't get a Trey Hendrickson and you're willing to play in the sort of veteran end of the pool, and I would prefer Khalil Mack over Joey Bosa if you want to try and throw that kind of money around. Now, obviously, Mack could cost more than Bosa, but I would still prefer that investment.
Yeah, I don't hate that. There we go. They need some pass rushers. Would you play in the high the big market though with Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Odafe Oweh?
I'd at least be in that conversation. There's some teams that I don't think even pick up that phone, and they're like, hey, what's the number? There's some teams that I don't think you're even talking. The Bucs, I think, can be at least in the conversations, and then if the numbers go crazy, let's back off and go somewhere else. But I'd definitely be picking up the phone to Trey Hendrickson and finding out what his contract needs to look like. I mean, if Hendrickson wants Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt money, then no, I'm fine. Go find. Good luck to you. Go find that from somebody else. But like if Hendrickson's got PTSD from dealing with the Bengals for the last few years and is suddenly like I'll take a reasonable contract, then sure.
As far as linebackers go, given how often Bowles likes to blitz, we already mentioned Nakobe Dean is solid at that. Devin Lloyd. I don't know if I want to pay massive money for Devin Lloyd if I'm the Bucs, given like the edge rush need, but I think he's intriguing as far as a scheme fit goes. And then Caden Ellis in the division with the Falcons, excellent blitzer and coverage versatility there. So I'm really interested to see what the Bucs do at linebacker. They're another one of those teams where you just go to one of these 5 to 8 decent linebacker starters that you can grab at free agency, and then also probably double up in the draft as well.
I also kind of wonder, I mean, if they don't bring back Levante David, which you could argue is probably the right time to get out based off his last season. I mean, he's been there the whole time with Todd Bowles. Like, what is losing a guy with that, A, veteran experience, and B, veteran experience within the same system do for suddenly the entire defense needs to operate with a new leader, a new coach on the field, that's going to be a major change.
New everything. It's probably worth having him back. It's like,
but just except, for, if he is
just for directing traffic,
that's the thing. Like, if he is basically done, like you're in this awkward situation where it's like, man, we'd love to have him back because he's so important to the kind of mental operation of the defense. But if he can't get it done anymore, you're almost left having to go somewhere else and hoping that you can replace that part of him as well.
What does the mock draft look like? Because early in this process, we were giving them Sonny Styles at 15, quite a bit, and he's, the great workout might have him going more in the top 10. What are we looking at here?
I'm happy enough with how the mock panned out for us. We got Jamad McCoy, the cornerback from Tennessee, at 15 overall. I think that's a great pick for them. 46 overall in the second round. We went with Eli Stowers, which is technically your tight end solution, but TBD. It's a good thing to have a blocker on the roster.
If we have Charlie Kohler and they listen to me there, then that's a really nice 1-2 punch.
That's what I'm saying.
He's the Isaiah Likely to Kohler.
Exactly. It's a good thing we got blocking tight end sort of, because we definitely went with the move tight end part of that in the second round. And then the third round, Jalen Farmer, interior offensive lineman out of Kentucky.
There we go. Good draft for the Bucs. Gave them some free agent options, and we did it quickly and efficiently because it's the South.
Yeah.
And when you work from home, we don't rant as much.
And people say, look, there are people out here, CEOs, big Fortune 500 people, like, you got to be in the office in order to get any kind of productivity done. Look at you over there. You're at home. There's 4 kids somewhere downstairs murdering each other, and you're just more productive than ever.
I haven't heard any screaming. I don't know if that's good or bad. Don't know. They could be outside on the street for all I know. Yeah. Who knows? Probably eating ice cream.
It's Schrodinger's, kids. Like it could be a total disaster, or it could be perfect. There's no way of knowing until you open the door and go downstairs.
So it's always one of my most fun series, whether people are watching it or not, Sam. Fixing every team. We just did 32 teams in 4 days. Gave everybody some options, gave everybody an idea of what free agency, what the draft could look like, and now it's all going to happen. I think we're going to get a lot of news this weekend. I believe it was this weekend last year where the Geno Smith trade went down.
Yeah, I mean, we're already getting the news.
Going to happen. Yeah, there's always going to be a lot of news. So what needs to happen is you got to hit subscribe so you stay with us. So when we go live, we're going live because we're going to go live and instant react to whatever happens. We also know that one of these teams in the South is going to make some monster move as soon as we finish this recording.
Yeah, because
that's what happens. So we'll go live if we can, God willing, of course, because we had tech issues yesterday. But be subscribed, be ready anytime between now and Monday. And then Monday noon, we're not going at 9. We're going to go at noon, right as legal tampering officially opens. And we're just going to stay live for 4 or 5 hours, whatever it takes, as all the news comes in.
Yeah, unless, of course, enough news breaks between now and Monday that we can go on Monday as per usual at 9, in addition to noon, and get another show out of it as well. Do you want to take a beat and break down the DJ Moore to Buffalo trade as a little bonus at the back end of this thing?
We should. We absolutely should. Okay, DJ Moore has been traded to the Buffalo Bills, a second-round pick. The Bears also give up a 5th-round pick. So pick swap, 2 and 5. DJ Moore goes to the Bills and some guaranteed money through 2028. I think my initial reaction is, okay, it's an upgraded receiver for the Bills, DJ Moore.
Yep.
It feels like a massive overpay for that player to upgrade the receiving core. So in the short term, they've upgraded the receiving core.
Yep.
I think Moore is still smooth in and out of his breaks. I think he's excellent winning on the outside. He's got good route running ability. I know there's questions about him stopping routes and effort. I know our friend JT O'Sullivan doesn't love watching. No one's done more film breakdowns on the Bears than JT over the last couple of years, because he breaks down all the Caleb Williams games. I know he's not a big fan of DJ Moore, but I get it. Like, I get it from a Bills perspective. It's an upgrade, but there's a lot of risk attached, especially in the long term here. It's a lot of money for him.
Yeah, there is. So, DJ Moore, former first-round pick way back in 2018, is that? Part of the Caleb Williams, or the Bryce Young trade, rather. So came over as part of Carolina jumping up to get Bryce Young, ends up being paired with Caleb Williams. You're right. Like, I think it's another move that shows that Brandon Beane, however upset he got at being needled over wide receiver last year, clearly recognized the truth in that Buffalo did need an upgrade at wide receiver, which is why they tried to trade for Jalen Waddle, couldn't get that over the line. They brought in Brandon Cooks. That was of limited impact. And then now they've gone and made this move for DJ Moore, having also drafted Keon Coleman in the first round. And like they've attacked wide receiver quite hard for a team that steadfastly, argued they never needed an upgrade at wide receiver. This is the latest in an example of that, and I think it's definitely an upgrade. I think it's definitely a player that, you can argue that DJ Moore does a lot of his good stuff over the middle as well, but he does operate on the perimeter and can win on the outside against aggressive press coverage in a way none of these other Buffalo receivers can have. So it's not like the cleanest example of, like, if you were finding the player that Buffalo needed, what would it look like? I don't think he's the cleanest example of that, but it is an answer to that wide receiver issue. But it's what looks like a fairly significant overpay in both directions in terms of the draft capital and the contract. And then B, you've got the question of how much is he on the downslope of his career already? Okay, right. He's only 28, 29 years old, so he shouldn't be physically done, but you've got to go way back to find his best play at this point.
Right. So like I said, from a Bills perspective, I think they get better in the short term with him. I worry about a couple years from now. And I follow a lot of Bills fans. Some Bills fans are like, I don't care. We'll deal with the credit card when we have to deal with it. Let's just get better. Let's make a run for it.
Yeah.
But the other day we talked about the Chiefs and Rams. Given the life cycle of both teams, it felt like a win-win. The Chiefs needed a reset and more picks. The Rams are close with a massive need at corner, and they got a player in his prime for a first rounder and some other picks. Just felt like a win-win. It's not about winning the trade, but for the Bears and from their perspective, this is a massive win for the Bears. They already think about this. They spent a second rounder last year on Luther Burden, who's now going to directly replace DJ Moore, and they got a second rounder in return for DJ Moore to trade him. The Bears are still making out from the Bryce Young trade. They traded the number 1 overall pick to Carolina. They got the next year's first rounder that turned into Caleb Williams. They got all these other draft picks. They got DJ Moore, and they're still benefiting by getting a few years of DJ Moore production and trading him for a 2. I mean, this trade has been sustaining the Bears for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
And so they're still winning this Bryce Young trade. And sometimes, when you go back and we talk about should the Raiders trade number 1, no, you always stick with Mendoza. The counter argument to that is that the Bears are still benefiting from trading the number 1 overall pick and the residual value that they've gotten from the picks and the player, DJ Moore, that they got. So I think it's outstanding for the Bears. Luther Burden looked great when given the opportunities as the wide receiver 3. He's wide receiver 2 or 1-2 with him and Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland. So they got young group of playmakers, and you get a 2 in return for DJ Moore. Just incredible work. And you get out from the contract. Yeah. You usually don't get out from that type of contract without having to pay a whole lot of money in dead cap. And the Bears it's really a win-win for the Bears and the Bills. They took advantage, I think, of the Bills' desperation to find a receiver.
Oh, I think it's an incredible deal from the Bears' point of view. I mean, they were kind of already phasing out DJ Moore within that offense. Like, I think a lot of their best play was when he wasn't there. Like you said, there were some concerns about his effort level, the chemistry between him and Caleb Williams, just how the two of those guys were operating together, even if it's not necessarily all DJ Moore's fault. And I think they were trying to phase him out, go in a different direction. So for them to get, they get a second-round pick, they give up a 5th. So that, I mean, depending on the trade chart you look at, that nets a sort of high third-round pick in value. That's kind of the overall value that you're dealing with. But you also get a second-round pick out of it, even if you had to give up a 5th to get it. And as you said, get out from that contract. I mean, it's an amazing deal from Chicago's point of view.
It's one of those, if you knew, because we talk about, hey, did you overpay this player? If you always knew that you had this deal on the back end that you can make, these aren't always available. Right? Because a lot of teams have over $300 million in dead cap has been eaten around the NFL. And if you're able to get out of this while obtaining, as you said, the value of a 3rd and actual second-round pick, unbelievable job by the Bears. You'll take that every time.
And then the concern from Buffalo's point of view is that, he is coming off some pretty unproductive seasons. His first year in Chicago was really good. The subsequent seasons have not been. Last year, he averaged 1.24 yards per route run, which, number 1, is 68th in the NFL. Number 2, guess who is just 2 spots ahead of that with 1.26 yards per route run last season?
Keon Coleman?
Yeah, Keon Coleman. So optics-wise, it's not phenomenal from Buffalo's point of view.
Let me give you the positive side for Buffalo. I think the routes that DJ Moore runs are the routes that Caleb Williams is sailing. Right. When you see him, he is very good. Like when he has off coverage on the outside, he's very good in and out of his breaks. He runs the deep out. He runs the deep dig. He runs these routes that you don't have a whole lot of Bills receivers that they just don't run them that well. And he is, I think more, even though there have been points in his career where he lines up in the slot, lines up in the backfield. He's this, they've relied on him to create shallow crosses. I think he can win on the outside. And so I think that is a nice compliment to Dawson Knox and Khalil Shakir. And I do believe some of his production was Caleb Williams' inaccuracy and the fact that they had these other options. So I do think in the short term, effort level aside, I think the skill set makes sense for the Bills. I think it makes them better in the short term. You're just going to be sitting here saying, man, DJ Moore just doesn't feel like a $25 to $27 million receiver in 2027 and 28. It doesn't feel like, what could we do with that money if it wasn't going to DJ Moore? That's where it's going to feel uncomfortable, I think, for the Bills. But in the short term, you roll DJ Moore out there with Shakir, with Knox, with Kincaid. I don't know if Knox is back or whatever, but with James Cook out of the backfield, you're feeling a little bit better about your receiving core.
Yeah, and look, they've guaranteed him a lot of money now. It's ending up as like a 3-year, $75 million type of deal is sort of what the reworked contract is going to shake out to looking like. But as we said, he's not 30 years old yet. He's not even 29 years old yet. He'll be 29 this season. So if it's a 3-year deal, that takes him through being 32. That seems reasonable in terms of physical ability to play at a high level before you start to worry about the decline. If it's 3 years at $25 million a year, the cap is only ever going up. All too often these deals get signed, and then a couple of years later, you're like, it's a bargain given where the numbers are. Like what Jamar Chase has already done to the wide receiver marketplace. That number is getting up there pretty quickly. $25 million a year. If DJ Moore is able to bounce back to like some of his better play, if he plays the same way he did last year, I think this is a bad deal from their point of view. Like, this is not going to help them necessarily. It's not going to fix the holes that they had. It's not going to solve the problem of you don't have anybody that can win against high-end players. If he bounces back to like the first year in Chicago or, earlier in his Carolina career, then I think $25 million a year for that player for 3 years with Josh Allen as his quarterback, that's okay. That's reasonable. And look, a high third-round pick / the second-round pick that you had to give up, it's not inconsiderable draft capital. Like, there are going to be some good players available in this draft at the bottom of the second, the top of the third round, right? So that's what you're giving up to acquire this guy. On the other hand, if you have determined that you need a wide receiver, like if this is the critical need, that's the area where there aren't that many of those players around, right? That's how you ended up with Keon Coleman in the first place. You ended up at the bottom of that first round. You're like, which one of these guys is the answer to X? And the answer may have been none of them. Actually, if you look back in hindsight, you're kind of in the same spot this year, right? If you look at this group and you're like, okay, bottom of the second round, top of the third, who's the answer at X wide receiver? Who's the guy that can win on the outside against aggressive press man coverage? The answer may be nobody. So if the alternative is that, or we, overpay a bit, we give a contract that we don't love to DJ Moore, I get how you arrive at that.
Yeah, and but the way I would put a bow on this too was the production down last year? He went from 140 targets to 85, 98 catches to 50. Right. How much of that was situational? How much of that I don't know if he's necessarily declining as much as, hey, they invested elsewhere and he's getting phased out, right? It doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means I think it was more the Bears' choice. He also has the game-winning, post route. He's good in contested situations. He's got good hands. There were some good moments last year from DJ Moore as well. So I think he's got the skill set to upgrade Buffalo. Again, my concern's on the back end of it, but if you're not concerned about that, in the short term, I think right. You're getting better.
He's got a really intriguing skill set. I mean, he's powerful. There's a bit of redundancy there with what Khalil Shakir already does, but he's really good at like wide receiver screens and stuff because he's so strong and powerful and quite good in short area quickness. Like DJ Moore is good at that stuff. So I mean, even if you just want somewhere else to go with those types of plays, then hey, all Khalil Shakir does is run these, and the only player that we have to worry about getting bubble screens or whatever is Shakir. Like if you just want another guy to do those, DJ Moore does that at a really high level as well. So there's definitely a way that works out well for Buffalo, but they've invested a lot to make this happen.
The other news going on right now, Geno Smith will be released per multiple reports.
Yep.
Where is the
question there to me is just what is his market? Because there were reports that he was going to have a strong market this offseason, which would be interesting coming off a genuinely cataclysmic season from his point of view.
Yeah, all of the QB needy teams, I mean, he's coming off an awful season, but the 3 previous seasons weren't nearly as bad. Josh Dubow says the Raiders will have paid Geno Smith $58.5 million and traded a third-round pick to get him. He won 2 starts and led the NFL with 17 interceptions last season. It all of a sudden becomes, if you get him for like $10 million a year, it's like, if that's even available, it's like a bargain. But unless he plays as badly, he was awful last year.
Yeah,
but we know the whole situation was awful as well. So
yeah, I mean, he was so bad that based off his play last year, he's not even a viable bridge quarterback. Like that's the concern is like if that was who he is now, and I think that was probably an extreme version of who he is now, but if that's who he is from now on, he's a backup. Like he doesn't even serve as the starting quarterback that you can get through a season with until you pitch the keys over to the rookie that you're drafting next year. Like he's genuinely not capable of starting anymore. He's a backup. But if you think last year's Raiders dragged him down and the whole thing was a train wreck and Geno's probably better than that, well, then maybe he's a bridge option for some of these teams that are looking to 2027.
All right. That's it for the news today. Good show. Appreciate everybody for being here all week. If you did missed the previous shows, be sure to check them out. All 32 teams went team by team, free agency, draft, fixed them all. And next week, it all goes down. Monday at noon, legal tampering. Appreciate everybody for being here. We might be here 9 a.m. on Monday. We will definitely be here at noon on Monday.